Chapter 1774, Farewell. Chapter 1774, Farewell. After the end of the Battle of Blood Fiend, Tianhuang mainland finally welcomed a long-awaited period of peace. The 10,000 races recuperated and recovered their vitality in a peaceful manner. For the past 40,000 years, due to the baptism of many calamities in Tianhuang mainland, coupled with the endless fighting in the cultivation world, countless sects lost their legacies. Among the immortal, Buddhist and fiend sects alone, some super sects were destroyed. As for those sects, they left behind some seeds that began to establish new sects in Tianhuang mainland to take in disciples. After pondering for a long time, Su Zimo did not choose to leave the subsequent cultivation techniques of the martial Tao on Tianhuang mainland. It was not that he could not bear to. It was just that even he did not know if this Tao would work and what the future would be like. It was enough to inherit the 9 transformations of the martial Tao. For mortals without spirit roots, as long as they could cultivate to the 6th transformation of the 9 transformations of the martial Tao, they could cultivate any Tao techniques of the immortal, Buddhist and fiend sects and had a bright future ahead. However, the path ahead of the martial Tao was dark. Only the martial Tao prime body had the determination and will to travel alone. Of course, as Su Zimo's eldest disciple, Biming Shui was still summoned to his side to make her choice. Without hesitation, Biming Shui chose the unknown future of the martial Tao. Su Zimo did not hide anything and imparted the essence of the martial Tao, including the latest Fate Ring's secret ground, to Biming Shui. In the following period of time, Su Zimo was in no hurry to leave. Instead, he gathered with many old friends and bid farewell to them one by one. The capital of Great Zhou. A woman in a pale yellow dress stood in front of the stone steps of the palace with elegant green-robed scholars beside her. The two of them chatted casually, exchanging glances and smiles from time to time. After more than 1,000 years, the appearance of the woman and the scholar did not change much. The woman looked at the scholar with the same gentleness as before. However, both their statuses had undergone a tremendous change. Right now, the woman was the empress of the Great Zhou Empire, the most noble person in the North region. Although her cultivation was not high and she was only at the Void Reversion realm, her status was comparable to the sect masters of the North region and even the super sects of Tianhuang mainland. The scholar was no longer the little cultivator who was hunted down everywhere in the past. Instead, he was the eternal martial emperor who was respected by the 10,000 races and was renowned throughout the world. Of course, no matter how noble the empress was, she could not stand shoulder to shoulder with the emperor cultivators. Let alone the eternal martial emperor. If anyone were to see the eternal martial emperor standing shoulder to shoulder with the empress of Great Zhou in the palace and smiling, they would definitely be shocked. Although the identity of the woman and the scholar had changed significantly, there was no barrier between them when they interacted. "Are you leaving?" Turning to look at the scholar's side profile, Ji Yaoxue smiled and asked softly. "Yes." Su Zimo nodded. Ji Yaoxue smiled. "Go to the upper world. There are still people waiting for you there." Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he turned to look at Ji Yaoxue with a conflicted expression. "In truth, I've thought about what that person will be like. The one whom you can't forget and often dream about." With a relaxed expression, Ji Yaoxue teased, "It was only when she appeared that I understood. Even I would fancy such a peerless woman who looks down on the world." Initially, Su Zimo's heart felt heavy. However, when he saw Ji Yaoxue's smile, the sadness in his heart faded slightly. Ji Yaoxue reached out and patted Su Zimo on the shoulder gently. "All right, don't be like this. It's not like we're going to part forever. Once you reach the upper world, cultivate well and come back to visit me, and other old friends if you have the chance." Su Zimo was silent. Once he was in the upper world, it was almost impossible for him to descend again. The human emperor had ascended for countless years. Even with his cultivation, he nearly died when he forcefully descended. It would take countless years for Su Zimo to surpass the human emperor. The lifespan of a void reversion was only 5,000 years. At that time, even if he possessed the strength to descend to the lower world, everything would have changed. Furthermore, everything in the upper world was unknown and dangerous. Su Zimo knew that there was a high chance that this farewell would be forever. Yaoshue. Su Zimo lowered his head and spoke gently, as though he wanted to say something. Ji Yaoshue pursed her lips and looked at Su Zimo quietly with a hint of anticipation in her eyes. After a long silence, Su Zimo sighed internally. I'm leaving. Take care. You too. Ji Yaoshue said softly. Taking a deep breath of air, Su Zimo did not think further and turned to leave. Before long, he disappeared above the great Zhou's palace. Ji Yaoshue stood on the spot and looked in the direction where Su Zimo left. She could no longer suppress the reluctance and sadness in her heart, and her vision gradually blurred. Someone is waiting for him in the upper world, but isn't it the same in the lower world? Right then, a voice sounded from behind Ji Yaoshue. Ji Yaoshue looked a little flustered as she wiped away the tears from the corners of her eyes hurriedly, as though she was afraid that her thoughts might be exposed. Thereafter, she turned back. Not far away, a slender girl in pink stood. After all these years, Demoness Ji did not seem to have grown up and still looked like a young girl. However, she was filled with an irresistible charm. Yener, what are you talking about? Ji Yaoshue said. Demoness Ji replied, Sister, I know you the best. You don't seem to care, but you can't bear to. Ji Yaoshue was silent. A long time later, she said softly, So what if he can't bear to? He wants to ascend to the upper world and will probably never meet again. Yener, when are you going to attempt tribulation transcendence to ascend? Ji Yaoshue changed the topic and suddenly asked. I haven't become an empress yet, it's still early. Demoness Ji smiled and came to Ji Yaoshue's side. She held the latter's arm and smiled. I can still accompany you for many years, unlike that heartless person. You. Ji Yaoshue smiled and extended her finger, tapping Demoness Ji on the forehead gently. Sister, you don't have to be sad. Demoness Ji continued, I'll take you to watch him undergo tribulation transcendence a while later. At that time, he'll definitely be struck by the heavenly tribulation badly and his soul might even dissipate. We'll take that as revenge for you. Ah. Ji Yaoshue was shocked and asked hurriedly, Is tribulation transcendence that dangerous? At that point, Demoness Ji turned serious as well and retracted her smile. Tribulation transcendence is indeed extremely dangerous and there's a high chance of death. In the ancient books of the fiend's sects, there are many examples of failed tribulations. Actually, over the years, many people in Tianhuang mainland could have chosen to undertake the tribulation transcendence. However, no one dared to take the risk. This time round, all the living beings of the 10,000 races know that the martial emperor will definitely choose to undergo the tribulation transcendence and ascend. Therefore, many experts are waiting to watch the martial emperor undergo the tribulation transcendence so that they can gain some experience. Chapter 1775, Tribulation Transcendence. Chapter 1775, Tribulation Transcendence. Cultivation was a heaven-defying act and every single step was difficult. Prior to this, although there would be immense danger for every major cultivation realm, it was difficult to call it a tribulation. The divine power tribulation would only descend when one entered the Mahayana realm. However, the divine power tribulation paled in comparison to the heavenly tribulation. Heavenly tribulations were the most difficult to pass through in the minor kiliacosms. If one could survive it, they could ascend to the upper world to become immortals. If they failed, there would only be a single outcome, dissipation of the soul. One had to endure the baptism of the heavenly tribulation if they wanted to cultivate against the heavens. In Tianhuang mainland, as long as a cultivator cultivated to the perfected Mahayana realm, they could choose to undergo tribulation transcendence even if they had not comprehended supreme divine powers to become emperors. In the ancient era, the founder master of Enigma Palace, Fairy Ling Long, did not comprehend supreme divine powers but underwent tribulation transcendence to ascend. When cultivators cultivated to the perfected Mahayana realm, all they had to do was release their spirit consciousness to break through the barrier of this minor kiliacosm, and they would attract the heavenly tribulation. From the primordial era till now, there were very few cultivators who dared to trigger the heavenly tribulation at the perfected Mahayana realm because it was too dangerous. Even many emperors could not survive the heavenly tribulation. Su Zimo had once read in Enigma Palace that Fairy Ling Long experienced immense danger during her tribulation transcendence as well. If not for Fairy Ling Long's unparalleled divination skills and magnificent attainments in array formations, she would not have been able to survive. More importantly, one could only rely on their own strength for the tribulation transcendence. If anyone else helped, that person would be implicated and many variables would arise for the tribulation transcendence. Those were the precious experiences left behind by those who underwent tribulation transcendence in the ancient era. However, no matter how precious those experiences were, they could not compare to the fact that many experts could witness a person's tribulation transcendence process personally. It could be said that the martial emperor's tribulation transcendence was the center of attention. Many experts of Tianhuang mainland only knew one thing: the martial emperor would definitely undergo the tribulation transcendence. However, the martial emperor had 3 true bodies and nobody knew how he would choose to attempt the tribulation transcendence. If I were the martial emperor, I would choose to use one of my true bodies to undergo the tribulation transcendence as a test. The other 2 true bodies can also see what happens during the process. That's right. Even if he fails the tribulation transcendence, he still has 2 true bodies. By absorbing experience, those 2 true bodies might be able to think of a way to dispel it. During this period of time, the experts of the 10,000 races had been discussing the martial emperor's tribulation transcendence with different opinions. This day, a voice suddenly sounded and spread to every corner of Tianhuang mainland. I'm Desolate Marshal. 10 days later, I'll undergo the tribulation transcendence in the East Sea. Everyone, you can head over to take a look. Tianhuang mainland was shaken. Swoosh. 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 Instantly, countless figures soared into the skies from all over Tianhuang mainland and sped towards the East Sea. Some of the figures had lower cultivation realms and were only at the Dharma characteristic or conjoint body realm. Unlike Mahayana patriarchs, they could not tear through the void to descend upon the East Sea right away. Therefore, those cultivators set off immediately for the East Sea. Although the Dharma characteristic and conjoint body realms were still extremely far from tribulation transcendence, no one wanted to miss this opportunity. Which true body do you think the martial emperor will attempt tribulation transcendence with first? I'm guessing the dragon phoenix true body. After all, the dragon phoenix is a taboo. He has a higher chance for the tribulation transcendence and might be able to deal with changes. I'm guessing it's the green lotus true body. After all, it's an utmost treasure of the universe. For the past 10 days, a large number of cultivators gathered around the East Sea. Apart from some cultivators, there were also experts of the 10,000 races discussing. Among them, there were many familiar faces: Monkey, the Spirit Tiger, Ching Ching, Night Spirit, Little Fox, and the Golden Lion were naturally among them. Nian Qi had also rushed over from God's mainland and stood shoulder to shoulder with Tao Yao. In front of her old friends, she did not have the slightest bit of arrogance as the God Empress. Bai Ming Shua and the Kuan Peng had arrived as well. Consort Yu, the Azura and Extreme Fire were in the crowd too. Lin Xuanji, Ming Zhen, Little Fatty, Shi Jian and the others stood together. The emperors of the human race and the various races tore through the void and descended on the East Sea as well. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. Suddenly, 3 cracks appeared above the East Sea and 3 figures with powerful auras walked out. Su Zimo's 3 true bodies descended at the same time. The 3 true bodies stood far apart and looked up at the firmaments with calm expressions. Everyone's gazes were focused on Su Zimo's 3 true bodies nervously. Suddenly, Lin Xuanji frowned and asked softly, "Old man, did Brother Su say which true body would attempt the tribulation transcendence first?" No. The storyteller had a grim expression as well. From the looks of it, there's a high chance that the martial emperor is going to undergo tribulation transcendence with 2 true bodies. Suddenly, Su Zimo's 3 true bodies released their terrifying spirit consciousnesses at the same time and surged into the skies, breaking through the clouds and striking the barrier of the Tianhuang mainland. Pust! Everyone was shocked and in an uproar. How dare the martial emperor? The martial emperor is way too conceited. What if? The martial emperor sure is bold to attempt tribulation transcendence with 3 true bodies at the same time. Instantly, a commotion broke out in the crowd. Even the storyteller's heart skipped a beat as he thought to himself, this is a little reckless. As everyone discussed, dark clouds filled the skies above the East Sea in the blink of an eye. They were pitch black and 3 massive clouds hovered above the heads of the 3 true bodies. Boom! 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 Wild winds howled above the East Sea and lightning flashed as thunder rumbled within the black clouds. The 3 black clouds covered the skies and emitted a tremendous divine might that terrified the living beings of the 10,000 races. The experts of the 10,000 races had long fled far away and were almost standing on the mainland, looking at the East Sea from afar. They did not dare to advance, afraid that they would be implicated by the heavenly tribulation. Everyone could see clearly that of the 3 clouds, the cloud above the martial Dao prime body was clearly larger. The clouds above the Dragon Phoenix true body and Green Lotus true body were similar in size. The 3 black clouds spun slowly and gradually turned into a gigantic vortex. Faint red electric arcs began to flash from the clouds and gathered towards the center of the vortex with a terrifying power. The cultivators were shocked and they saw the red lightning. It's red lightning. Did you think that the heavenly tribulation would be an ordinary lightning tribulation? This heavenly tribulation contains a destructive power and has long undergone a qualitative change. Ordinary lightning was colorless or white. However, the current heavenly tribulation was red. The heavenly tribulation was about to descend. The center of the black cloud vortex shone with a blinding red light that reflected thousands of kilometers and illuminated the mountains and rivers. The entire world seemed to be covered in blood. Crack! Almost at the same time, a red thunderbolt descended from the center of the 3 black clouds and struck Su Zimo's 3 true bodies. The Dragon Phoenix true body and Green Lotus true body stood with their heads raised and burning gazes. They looked at the descending heavenly tribulation and did not use any methods to defend. What is the martial emperor doing? Why isn't he releasing any dharmic treasures or divine powers to defend against the heavenly tribulation? Could it be that the martial emperor wants to use his body to withstand the power of the heavenly tribulation? The crowd was in shock. In the blink of an eye, 2 red heavenly tribulations descended on the Dragon Phoenix true body and Green Lotus true body. However, the 2 true bodies were different and red lightning coiled around their bodies with crackling sounds. The 2 true bodies withstood the heavenly tribulation unscathed. On the other side, the martial Dao prime body looked at the descending heavenly tribulation and was even more domineering. He reached out and grabbed the heavenly tribulation, squeezing it. Boom! The heavenly tribulation exploded in the palm of the martial Dao prime body. Chapter 1776, 4 of 9 Heavenly Tribulation. Chapter 1776, 4 of 9 Heavenly Tribulation. Su Zimo's 3 true bodies underwent tribulation transcendence at the same time. Against the impact of the heavenly tribulation, the Dragon Phoenix true body and Green Lotus true body chose to take the first lightning tribulation head-on with their bodies to sense the power within. As for the martial Dao prime body, he was even more domineering and took the initiative to crush the lightning tribulation. Only through the actual tribulation transcendence can one understand the obscurities within. Apart from the massive power of thunder, there was also a mysterious power within the lightning tribulation. It was that power that caused the lightning in the black clouds to transform into a terrifying heavenly tribulation. At that moment, the bodies of the Dragon Phoenix true body and Green Lotus true body endured the baptism of the first lightning tribulation. Lightning flashed and coiled around their bodies. The power of thunder in the lightning tribulation gradually dissipated and the remaining strange power seeped into their bodies through their skin. That strange power was also changing his two true bodies. It's heaven and earth essence chi. A thought flashed through Su Zimo's mind. A few years ago, when Diyu descended, she mentioned some things about the upper world to him. Among them, there was the mysteriousness of heaven and earth essence chi. After fusing with heaven and earth essence chi, lesser divine powers could transform and evolve into an even more terrifying power that could destroy Su Zimo's supreme divine power. Right now, the reason why the thunder transformed into a lightning tribulation was definitely because it was infused with heaven and earth essence chi. At the same time, a realization flashed through Su Zimo's mind. Although tribulation transcendence was dangerous, it was a threshold that cultivators of the lower world had to cross. In the minor kiliacosms, one could only come into contact with heaven and earth essence chi through tribulation transcendence to baptize their flesh and essence spirit before transforming once more. That way, cultivators of the lower world would be able to adapt to the environment of the upper world. Only cultivators who underwent tribulation transcendence could absorb heaven and earth essence chi from the upper world to cultivate. The martial Tao prime body crushed the heavenly tribulation and the lightning dissipated in his palm. However, the heaven and earth essence chi within surged into the body of the martial Tao prime body and baptized his flesh. The martial Tao prime body closed his eyes slightly and sensed the slight changes in his body. When the red heavenly tribulation descended earlier on, I could still feel a sense of trepidation despite being so far away. How terrifying! An emperor sighed gently. To think that such a terrifying heavenly tribulation would be nothing to the martial emperor. How can tribulation transcendence be that simple? There are 9 lightning tribulations and each one is fiercer than the last. This is only the beginning. Actually, if it was just a single lightning tribulation, many emperors throughout history would be able to withstand it no matter what with all their trump cards, methods and dharmic treasures. However, most emperors who failed their tribulation transcendence died in the later lightning tribulations. Most emperors could not defend against the impact of the heavenly tribulation and their souls were dispersed after their trump cards were exhausted. Many emperors refused to undergo the tribulation transcendence for a long time because they wanted to comprehend as many supreme divine powers as possible. That was because every single supreme divine power could defend against an additional lightning tribulation. The skies above the East Sea. The dark clouds were even lower and thicker. Blazing red electric currents intertwined in the dark clouds and gathered towards the center of the black cloud vortex. Crack! A dark red lightning tribulation descended from the skies and smashed towards Su Zimo's 3 true bodies. The color of the lightning tribulation was much darker than before and the power it emitted was even more terrifying. The Dragon Phoenix true body and Green Lotus true body did not move still and welcomed the baptism of the heavenly tribulation with their bodies. Apart from heaven and earth essence chi, there was also a forceful power of thunder in the heavenly tribulation. That baptism made the flesh of his 2 true bodies even stronger. To begin with, lightning contained life force and the essence of heaven and earth. All of that was a great tonic for Su Zimo. Of course, no one else could imitate this method of tribulation transcendence. The martial Tao prime body was still as domineering as ever. Against the descending lightning tribulation, he punched in reverse and shattered the dark red lightning tribulation. Under countless gazes, the lightning tribulations descended time and again. The colors turned darker, dark red, blood red and scarlet. The power of the lightning tribulations became increasingly terrifying as well. Even the emperors who were watching from afar felt shudders. The 2 true bodies did not move at all as they endured the baptism of the lightning tribulations. Not only were they not injured, their auras became stronger instead. The way the martial Tao prime body attempted the tribulation transcendence was even more violent and direct. Initially, he was still standing in midair and raising his hand to defend against the lightning tribulations. However, at the 7th, 8th and 9th tribulations, the martial Tao prime body rose against the tide and charged towards the heavenly tribulations. Boom! 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 The moment the ninth lightning tribulation descended, the martial Tao prime body had already arrived beneath the black cloud. He raised his fist and punched towards the lightning vortex in the center of the black cloud, shouting, "Break!" Boom! The lightning cloud was shattered by a single punch from the martial Tao prime body and dissipated everywhere. The martial Tao prime body stood beneath the firmaments like an unparalleled god. In less than an hour, all 9 lightning tribulations were past. Su Zimo's 3 true bodies were safe and sound. To think that the most dangerous 8th and 9th tribulations would be passed by the martial emperor so easily. This method of tribulation transcendence is truly unprecedented. The living beings of the 10,000 races lamented. Although the tribulation transcendence was over, Su Zimo's 3 true bodies did not leave and no phenomenon descended from the firmaments. According to the ancient books, a milky white beam of light would descend upon the tribulation transcendence cultivator and guide him to the upper world. However, after the 9 lightning tribulations ended, the pressure released by the firmaments became even more terrifying, as though a calamity had descended. What's going on? Didn't the martial emperor succeed in his tribulation transcendence? The living beings of the 10,000 races became restless. Could it be? Lin Xuanji's heart skipped a beat as he turned to the storyteller with a questioning expression. The storyteller nodded with a grim expression. In that case, the legend of the heavenly tribulation is true. What legend? The emperors asked curiously. The major sects were not the only ones without much concrete records of the heavenly tribulation. Even Enigma Palace only had some legends. The storyteller said, "Legend has it that there are 9 heavenly tribulations. We know about that. Isn't it the 9 lightning tribulations?" An emperor continued. The storyteller shook his head. The 9 is not referring to the 9 lightning tribulations, but 9 heavenly tribulations. What? The emperors were shocked. Long Ran asked, "You mean to say that there are 9 of such heavenly tribulations?" The storyteller nodded before shaking his head. As far as we know, the 9 lightning tribulations we saw earlier on could only be considered as the first level of the heavenly tribulation. In other words, it can be referred to as the one of 9 heavenly tribulation. However, if any monster incarnate is born in the world and the heavens are jealous, there's a chance that a second heavenly tribulation will be triggered. There will still be 9 lightning tribulations in the second heavenly tribulation, and that will be known as the 2 of 9 heavenly tribulation. The eternal human emperor once attracted the 3 of 9 heavenly tribulation. Not many people in Enigma Palace knew about this, let alone others. The storyteller paused for a moment and said slowly, "Legend has it that the limit of the lower world is the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation. Up till now, there has never been such a heavenly tribulation in Tianhuang mainland." Chapter 1777, Rebirth. Chapter 1777, Rebirth. Although the 9 lightning tribulations were over, the dark clouds in the firmaments had not dispersed completely and were still spiraling above Su Zimo's 3 true bodies. They were dark and heavy, containing some terrifying power. Before long, the dark clouds changed, and in the blink of an eye, another 3 thick clouds formed above Su Zimo's 3 true bodies. The clouds were even more terrifying than before, as though ink could drip out. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the clouds, filled with a murderous intent that could devour and tear everything apart. The black clouds spun once more, and the endless power of thunder in the clouds began to gather towards the center of the vortex, causing the lightning to intensify. However, this time round, it was no longer a red lightning tribulation, but orange lightning. Streaks of lightning flashed in midair and burst forth with a bedazzling golden light. This had completely surpassed the lightning tribulation that many experts had imagined. To think that there was the power of orange lightning in this world. In the center of the black cloud vortex, there seemed to be a blazing sun that shone with golden light and was surrounded by countless lightning. The 2 of 9 heavenly tribulation had arrived. Suddenly, a blinding golden lightning tribulation burst forth from the center of the 3 black cloud vortexes, and countless electric arcs intertwined. The lightning tribulation descended from the skies like a towering ancient tree and smashed towards Su Zimo's 3 true bodies. The Dragon Phoenix true body and Green Lotus true body did not release any divine powers or secret skills nor dermic treasures, prepared to take the 2 of 9 heavenly tribulation head-on with their bodies. The martial Tao prime body had a calm expression and took the initiative to attack the lightning tribulation just like earlier on. Boom! A loud bang sounded when the golden lightning tribulation struck the 2 true bodies. A terrifying power struck the 2 true bodies and sent them flying, almost falling from midair. The crowd stirred. Su Zimo's 2 true bodies were not injured at all against the final tribulation of the 1 of 9 heavenly tribulation. To think that the first tribulation of the 2 of 9 heavenly tribulation would send Su Zimo's 2 true bodies flying. On the other side, the martial Tao prime body was still as domineering as ever. He did not use any methods and shattered the golden lightning tribulation with a single punch. The heaven and earth essence chi contained by the lightning tribulation gradually fused into the body of the martial Tao prime body. The martial Tao prime body's heart skipped a beat as he smelted it with the martial Tao furnace. Sensing the power of the lightning tribulation, a glint flashed through his eyes as though he was enlightened. Cough, cough. Su Zimo's 2 true bodies stood up slowly and gasped. Although the Dragon Phoenix true body was a taboo and the Green Lotus true body was an utmost treasure of the universe, it was still far from the martial Tao prime body right now. A powerful power of thunder interweaved within the 2 true bodies with a destructive aura. Both true bodies suffered some damage from that first lightning tribulation. However, his 2 true bodies had strong regeneration capabilities and his injuries healed in the blink of an eye with a surge of blood chi. There was no fear in Su Zimo's eyes. Instead, there was a flash of excitement. The power of this second heavenly tribulation was clearly much stronger than the first. This also meant that the heaven and earth essence chi produced by the second heavenly tribulation was even purer and richer. Dangers were accompanied by opportunities. The more benefits Su Zimo could obtain during the tribulation transcendence, the more likely he would be able to adapt and gain a foothold in the upper world. Boom! Boom! The second lightning tribulation descended and did not give the 2 true bodies any chance to catch their breaths. Splash! 2 vibrations sounded from the 2 true bodies as well as their blood chi rumbled with the sound of tsunamis. Su Zimo did not dare to be careless and channeled his blood chi to fight the lightning tribulation head-on. Boom! 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 The lightning tribulations descended continuously and struck Su Zimo's 3 true bodies wildly, as though they would not stop until they were destroyed. The further the second heavenly tribulation progressed, the more terrifying its power became. Initially, the lightning tribulation that descended was only as thick as an ancient tree. In the end, the lightning tribulation that descended was like a heavenly piercing divine pillar that required more than 10 people to wrap around. Golden light shone brightly and lightning surged. It had already drowned Su Zimo's 2 true bodies completely. The martial Tao prime body was still domineering. With his powerful body, he rose against the tide and shattered the thunderclouds above him once more. From the looks of it, there's almost no doubt that Su Zimo's 3rd true body will ascend through the tribulation. The storyteller nodded slightly. The other experts nodded as well. Up until now, it was unknown if the Dragon Phoenix true body and Green Lotus true body could succeed in the tribulation transcendence. A long time later, the lightning gradually dissipated, revealing the figures of the Dragon Phoenix true body and Green Lotus true body. The 2 true bodies were in a sorry state after being struck by the 2 of 9 heavenly tribulation. Their clothes were tattered and they coughed continuously with green smoke coming out of their orifices. However, the life force in the 2 true bodies was still exuberant and their eyes were still bright. Under the baptism of the 2 of 9 heavenly tribulation, the 2 true bodies seemed to have undergone a transformation. Their flesh was flawless, their bones were tough and their organs shone with a crystalline luster. Their auras became even more unfathomable. Right now, his 2 true bodies were equivalent to being baptized by the heaven and earth essence chi of the upper world and naturally seemed like they were reborn. Boom! 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 Before the two true bodies could rest, another deep and powerful thunderclap sounded from the firmaments. The 3 of 9 heavenly tribulation is here. The storyteller murmured with a worried expression. Back then, the eternal human emperor experienced the 3 of 9 heavenly tribulation before he ascended. Good timing. Su Zimo burst into laughter in a brazen manner. Many experts looked at Su Zimo as though they were looking at a monster. Actually, they did not know that the heavenly tribulation contained heaven and earth essence chi. It was clear that the 3 of 9 heavenly tribulation was much stronger than the 2 of 9 heavenly tribulation. Although it was more dangerous, it also meant that the heaven and earth essence chi within the 3 of 9 heavenly tribulation was much purer and richer. If Su Zimo could survive it, the improvement for him would be even more obvious. 3 thunderclouds gathered rapidly in the firmaments. This time round, the color of the lightning tribulation in the black clouds changed once more, from golden to green. Green lightning tribulation. The black clouds gathered and countless green thunderbolts converged in the center, forming a river that surged in a blinding manner. Boom! Boom! The lightning tribulation descended from the 3 thunderclouds. This time round, there were no beams of lightning. All the lightning formed a gigantic waterfall that poured down like a galactic river towards Su Zimo's 3 true bodies. Pust! The emperors were shocked and gasped. The 3 of 9 heavenly tribulation was so turbulent that it was even more powerful than the previous 2 tribulations combined. That power was not something that humans could defend against. 3 head 6 arms. The green lotus true body released a supreme divine power and roared into the skies. Each of his 6 palms held a dermic treasure that charged towards the lightning waterfall. Roar! The dragon phoenix true body roared as well, and raging flames burned on his body. The dragon phoenix flames emitted a scorching heat as though they wanted to incinerate everything and flow against the current. This time round, the 2 true bodies no longer held back and released all their methods. The expression of the martial Tao prime body turned grim as well as he channeled his blood chi slowly. The lightning waterfall was way too terrifying. If he was careless, he would be washed away without a corpse left. Even his body could not withstand it. Chapter 1778, Level 4 Fate Ring. Chapter 1778, Level 4 Fate Ring. The lightning waterfall descended in a blinding manner with electric arcs flashing and thunder rumbling. The dragon phoenix true body and green lotus true body released divine powers and released countless dermic treasures and secret skills to defend. Boom! 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 With each collision, there would be a violent quake. The lightning waterfall shattered and the remaining pure heaven and earth essence chi surged into the dragon phoenix true body and green lotus true body, fusing into every single inch of their flesh. Both true bodies transformed rapidly and their auras rose continuously. The lightning waterfall of the 3 of 9 heavenly tribulation became increasingly violent as well. After being shattered once, it could be condensed once more in the blink of an eye and descend from the skies once more. It was like a galaxy pummeling down from the 9 heavens and was extremely spectacular. Under the 3 of 9 heavenly tribulation, the dragon phoenix true body and green lotus true body were almost forced to their limits. On the other side, the martial Tao prime body was forced to circulate his blood chi to defend against the 3 of 9 heavenly tribulation. The only one who could stand against the 3 of 9 heavenly tribulation was the martial Tao prime body. The dragon phoenix true body and green lotus true body were pushed down by the lightning waterfall countless times and were covered in injuries and fresh blood. At the final lightning tribulation, 2 of the green lotus true body's heads and 4 arms were crushed by the lightning waterfall. Right in front of everyone, the 2 true bodies fell time and time again. However, each time, they stood up and were bathed in lightning with a torrential aura. Finally, the 3 of 9 heavenly tribulation dispersed. The dragon phoenix true body and green lotus true body were almost at their limits as well. Panting heavily, they channeled their blood chi and consumed a large number of elixirs to repair their injuries wildly. The 3 of 9 heavenly tribulation was still unable to pose a threat to the martial Tao prime body. Even after the 3 of 9 heavenly tribulation, the clothes of the martial Tao prime body were not damaged. The martial Tao prime body closed his eyes slightly, as though he was sensing something. The storyteller looked up at the firmaments with a grim expression. Although the 3 of 9 heavenly tribulation was over, the thunderclouds in the skies did not disperse and were still spiraling above Su Zimo's 3 true bodies. Could the martial emperor be attracting the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation? The storyteller frowned worriedly. Back then, the eternal human emperor merely attracted the 3 of 9 heavenly tribulation and ascended to the upper world. If the 3 of 9 heavenly tribulation was already so terrifying, what about the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation? Su Zimo's Dragon Phoenix true body and Green Lotus true body had already reached their limits after withstanding the 3 heavenly tribulations and had released all their supreme divine powers. If the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation were to descend right now, it would definitely be a destructive blow to the 2 true bodies. Boom! 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 Just as the storyteller was worried, the thunderclouds gathered once more in the firmaments. The color of the lightning tribulation changed once more. The green lightning tribulation turned into a blue lightning tribulation. However, this time round, the thunderclouds above the 3 true bodies no longer formed waterfalls. Instead, they formed a sea of lightning that tore through the voids like a tsunami with an endless might. Su Zimo reared his head and looked up. At that moment, his spirit perception warned him repeatedly. Above his head, he felt a destructive aura from the blazing sea of lightning. The 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation had descended. How is he going to defend against this? The 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation, that means that he will have to endure the impact of 36 lightning tribulations in total. Who can survive that? How is this a heavenly tribulation? It's practically trying to destroy the martial emperor. Many emperors wanted to watch the martial emperor undergo tribulation transcendence and gain some experience. But now, when they saw that, the emperors who were already hesitant became even more fearful. Even from afar, they felt despair. Su Zimo took a deep breath of air and looked at the sea of lightning above him with a burning gaze. There was no fear or intention to retreat in his eyes. Cultivation was a heaven-defying act to begin with. Without an indomitable spirit, how could one reach the peak? Even the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation was not much of a threat to the martial Tao prime body. For Su Zimo, the most important thing right now was how the Dragon Phoenix true body and Green Lotus true body were going to survive the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation. Boom! The sound of thunder was deafening and even the experts watching from afar felt their hearts skip a beat. The thunder possessed the most righteous power that could crush all evil. The moment the thunder sounded, Su Zimo gained a new understanding of the sound domain's secret skill, thunderclap kill. However, he was undergoing tribulation transcendence right now and did not have time to think. Above the firmaments, a blue ocean poured down and drowned the 3 true bodies instantly. The blue ocean did not nurture seawater, but a blinding lightning tribulation that threatened to destroy all life. The lightning was blinding and filled the world. Many experts could no longer see Su Zimo's 3 true bodies. His 3 true bodies were devoured by the lightning tide. Is it going to end just like that? Even the 3 true bodies of the martial emperor could not survive the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation. The living beings of the 10,000 races looked at everything in shock. Suddenly, a purple halo burst forth from the blue lightning tide. A figure appeared in the purple light. It was the martial Tao prime body. The emperors were sharp and could clearly see that there were 4 purple fate rings behind the martial Tao prime body that emitted powerful auras. Under the baptism of the heavenly tribulation, the martial Tao prime body broke through and entered level 4 of the fate ring realm, cultivating a 4th fate ring. The lightning tide surged. Under the protection of the 4 fate rings, the martial Tao prime body stood upright like a god among thunder. Roar! Suddenly, a deep roar filled with authority sounded from another lightning tide. In the blue lightning tide, a gigantic body gradually appeared. It was scarlet red and its scales were connected tightly with flames burning on them. It had wings on its back, a dragon's head and phoenix's tail and sharp claws. The dragon phoenix true body had already transformed into his true form to defend against the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation. Swoosh! The lightning tide surged. A streak of green broke through the tide and soared into the skies. The green lotus true body could not defend against it and released his bloodline phenomenon. In the lightning tide, a creation green lotus appeared and shone brightly as it bathed in electricity. Boom! From the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation, the second lightning tide descended and was even more ferocious. The massive body of the dragon phoenix true body was almost drowned in the lightning tide as he roared in pain. His blood chi surged and lifelike demon kings appeared one after another around him. The dragon phoenix true body was forced to release his bloodline phenomenon as well. That was his final trump card. The mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness was already at the perfected stage and 12 demon kings had appeared. Of course, without Dai Yu's backing, the 12 demon kings would not transform or reconstruct her form. Even so, the 12 demon kings were not to be underestimated and surrounded the dragon phoenix true body to defend against the impact of the lightning tide. Against the impact of the second lightning tide, the creation green lotus swayed violently and its lotus platform lowered, almost drowning in the lightning tide. Boom! Before the second lightning tide ended, the third lightning tide had already descended. It was even more terrifying and earth-shaking. Chapter 1779, Death of the Green Lotus. Chapter 1779, Death of the Green Lotus. The lightning was shocking and surged like a tide, wanting to devour and shatter all life. A third lightning tide descended and cracks appeared on the 12 demon king phenomenons of the dragon phoenix true body. They were already on the verge of collapse. The situation on the side of the green lotus true body was even more dangerous. The phenomenon of the creation green lotus could no longer defend against it. Under the wash of the lightning tide, its leaves withered and lotus petals fell one after another. It turned into nothingness as the lightning tide surged. Boom! Boom! The fourth lightning tide arrived. Poof! 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 The 12 demon kings around the dragon phoenix true body dissipated instantly against the impact of the fourth lightning tide and were drowned in the sea of blue lightning. On the other side, the phenomenon of the creation green lotus dissipated as well. Su Zimo's figure reappeared and faced the gush of the lightning tide head-on. The 1 of 9 heavenly tribulation was nothing to the 2 true bodies and they could survive it with their bodies. However, this was the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation. Its strength had increased exponentially and was on a completely different level. When the 2 true bodies were exposed to the fourth lightning tide of the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation, they instantly felt a pain that seeped into their bones. When the dragon phoenix true body transformed into his true form, his body was protected by countless tough scales. He was invulnerable to weapons, water and fire. However, blood began to ooze from the dragon phoenix true body under the blue lightning tide. Countless power of the lightning tribulation surged into the body of the dragon phoenix true body and destroyed his life force. The green lotus true body was in an even worse state. In terms of physique, the green lotus true body was still weaker than the dragon phoenix true body. Under the wash of the fourth lightning tide, the green lotus true body's hair was disheveled and his flesh was split open by the lightning. He was charred black and fresh blood splattered everywhere. It was unknown how much pain and damage he endured. Thankfully, the regeneration capabilities of the green lotus true body were shocking and his flesh was filled with endless life force, regenerating in the destruction and healing his injuries wildly. Boom! Boom! The fifth lightning tide descended. It was even more turbulent, terrifying and shocking. The dragon phoenix true body could barely stand still and the scarlet scales on his body fell off one after another under the wash of the lightning tide, stained with blood. Without the protection of his scales, the flesh of the dragon phoenix true body was completely exposed to the lightning and was mangled by it. However, the dragon phoenix true body was still trying his best to grit his teeth and persevere. His eyes seemed to be burning with two flames and his gaze was resolute. This was a calamity and an opportunity. As long as he could survive it, he would obtain an immense transformation and improvement. Only under the tempering of such a powerful heavenly tribulation could he possess a better foundation and establish himself in the upper world. The green lotus true body was covered in injuries from the lightning tribulation and his skin peeled off in large patches like cracked bark. The flesh of the green lotus true body was charred black by the lightning tide and smoke billowed. Ah! Although the green lotus true body was severely injured, he did not show any signs of defeat or fear. Instead, he roared into the skies and his essence spirit released his spirit consciousness powerfully on the creation lotus platform. The creation lotus platform spun continuously and released wisps of life force that nourished the flesh of the green lotus true body. Heavens! If the fifth lightning tribulation of the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation is already so powerful, what terrifying power will the subsequent lightning tribulations release? Even a single wisp of lightning from this lightning tide can turn us into ashes, let alone the terrifying lightning tide itself. An emperor muttered to himself with a shocked expression. The 2 true bodies of the martial emperor won't be able to survive. Another emperor sighed. Many experts, including the storyteller, could tell that the martial emperor had already reached his limits and there were 4 more lightning tides behind. Boom! Boom! Instantly, a 6th lightning tide descended. Bang! The dragon phoenix true body and green lotus true body were sent flying and drowned by the lightning tide, spilling a large amount of blood. The 2 true bodies floated in the lightning tide and the bones in their bodies crackled, almost shattered by it. The green lotus true body coughed out large mouthfuls of blood with a pale expression as he healed his injuries wildly. Boom! Boom! The 7th lightning tide arrived. Poof! The dragon phoenix true body shuddered and spat out a mouthful of blood. Under the impact of the 7th lightning tide, his organs were severely injured and his life force was almost destroyed. It was even worse on the side of the green lotus true body. His flesh was washed clean by the terrifying lightning tide, leaving only a jade-green human-shaped skeleton that was still floating. The bones of the green lotus true body were made from the green lotus stem of the past and shone with a crystalline glow like jade. He's not dead yet? The emperors were dumbfounded. The storyteller focused his gaze and saw that there was an essence spirit that emitted a divine light in the jade-green head. Under the baptism of the lightning tide, it became increasingly condensed. The martial emperor was still holding on. Boom! The 8th lightning tide swept over and created a torrential wave. The wings of the dragon phoenix true body were snapped and more than half of his bones were shattered. His flesh began to fall off gradually in the lightning tide and his life force drained gradually as well. He could not defend against it anymore. The green lotus true body was in an even worse state. The green lotus skeleton was dispersed by the lightning tide and merely hovered around the creation lotus platform under the control of the green lotus essence spirit. There was no chance of blood rebirth if one's body was destroyed in the lightning tide. All his flesh and blood would be destroyed by the lightning tide. Furthermore, the essence spirits of the 2 true bodies could not be saved against the lightning tide. The skull of the green lotus essence spirit was already shattered by the lightning tide, leaving only a creation lotus platform that emitted a resplendent glow. It was still protecting the essence spirit and trying its best to hold on. Everyone watched intently and forgot to breathe. Boom! Boom! The 9th lightning tide descended. The bones of the dragon phoenix true body shattered and his organs were ruptured. His life force drained and he could not defend against the baptism of the 9th lightning tide at all. Swoosh! A bronze square tripod that was 10 feet tall flew out from the glabella of the dragon phoenix true body and welcomed the lightning tide in the skies. Boom! The bronze square tripod collided with the lightning tide with a loud bang. The lightning tide dissipated and transformed into countless electric arcs that descended from the firmaments and coiled around the dragon phoenix true body. Roar! The dragon phoenix true body roared into the skies and stood up from the lightning tide. The most terrifying power of the ninth lightning tide had already been endured by the bronze square tripod, and the remaining lightning was not enough to pose a threat to the dragon phoenix true body. The dragon phoenix true body was invigorated and condensed his blood chi once more. Countless thunderbolts tore through the world like thousands of divine dragons spiraling around him. Although the dragon phoenix true body looked miserable, he managed to survive with the bronze square tripod. It was different on the side of the green lotus true body. The green lotus true body threw out many dermic treasures. The other dermic treasures turned into ashes instantly in the lightning tribulation. Although the human emperor's seal was fine, its glow was washed away by the lightning tide and was drowned. Those dermic treasures could not defend against the ninth lightning tribulation at all. Right in front of everyone, the green lotus true body was drowned by the ninth lightning tide, and his essence, spirit, flesh and bones turned into ashes without a corpse left. Chapter 1780, Nine Heavens Living Soil. Chapter 1780, Nine Heavens Living Soil. Almost everyone thought that the green lotus true body had already died in the Four of Nine heavenly tribulation. Only the martial Tao prime body and dragon phoenix true body knew that the green lotus true body was not dead. The three true bodies could sense one another. Both the martial Tao prime body and dragon phoenix true body could sense that the aura of the green lotus true body was within the blinding lightning tide. However, even the martial Tao prime body did not know how the green lotus true body could survive the cleansing of the lightning tide. Suddenly, the martial Tao prime body exclaimed softly. Even with the bronze square tripod, the dragon phoenix true body nearly died against the Four of Nine heavenly tribulation. Although he managed to survive, his aura was weak and he was almost dead. But now, the aura of the green lotus true body was gradually rising. Something's not right. Right then, the storyteller noticed something unusual as well. He glared at the lightning tide in the distance and frowned. If the green lotus true body is dead, the lightning tribulation should have dissipated. Why is it still surging? Everyone focused their gazes as well. In the blinding blue tide, a strange yellow light was faintly visible. Gradually, the yellow color became clearer. Everyone's eyes widened. In the lightning tide, a bare green lotus platform floated with Su Zimo's essence spirit sitting on it. Although the creation lotus platform was drowned by the Four of Nine heavenly tribulation, the green lotus essence spirit did not die. Strange. An emperor said in a low voice. Even the leaves of the creation green lotus withered from the impact of the lightning tide, and its petals were shattered, leaving only a battered lotus platform. How can it protect the green lotus essence spirit? Look. Another emperor said, there seems to be a yellow barrier around the creation lotus platform, as though yellow sand is spreading around it. The strange yellow light that everyone saw earlier on was illuminated by the yellow sand. What is that? It can defend against the baptism of the Four of Nine heavenly tribulation? It looks very ordinary, like a pile of soil. The emperors had bewildered expressions. Even with their knowledge, they did not know what the yellow sand was. At that moment, even the spirit consciousness of the martial Tao prime body could not penetrate the barrier of the yellow sand. In the lightning tide of the Four of Nine heavenly tribulation, the green lotus true body underwent the greatest transformation. Su Zimo's green lotus true body had long grown to the peak of grade 8. Even after he obtained many opportunities later on and comprehended a supreme divine power like incinerating firmament boiling sea, the green lotus true body showed no signs of breaking through. Su Zimo did not know how the creation green lotus should break through and grow to grade 9 either. During the tribulation transcendence process, the green lotus true body was baptized by the lightning tribulation and infused with heaven and earth essence chi continuously. Finally, a qualitative change happened. The heavenly tribulation and heaven and earth essence chi were the key to the creation green lotus breaking through to grade 9. Under the repeated baptism of the heavenly tribulation, the flesh, tendons and bones of the green lotus true body became flawless and condensed without any impurities. His essence spirit was even purer and brighter. Under such circumstances, the fusion of heaven and earth essence chi caused the creation green lotus to transform and break through to grade 9. The creation green lotus stole the creation of heaven and earth. Towards the end of its growth, there would be many mysterious aspects to each transformation. Back then, the grade 7 creation green lotus allowed Su Zimo to release dermic arts continuously. The grade 8 creation green lotus contained many divine powers. At grade 9, the creation green lotus gave birth to an utmost treasure of the universe, the ordinary yellow soil that everyone saw. After the creation green lotus grew to grade 9, Su Zimo's green lotus essence spirit obtained an incomplete memory as well. Many ancient races had inheritance memories. The creation green lotus was the only one of its kind in the world, and it was normal for it to have inheritance memories. This inheritance memory recorded the origin of the yellow soil. The yellow soil was not an ordinary object. It was called the 9 heavens living soil and was the origin of the earth. It was extremely mysterious and possessed unparalleled defense, born from chaos. A portion of the living soil evolved into the 9 heavens while the other portion gave birth to the creation green lotus. Although the 9 heavens living soil was only a small handful, it could expand rapidly and transform endlessly. It was flexible, stable, and invulnerable. Of course, that portion of the inheritance memories was incomplete. In order to know the mysterious usages of the 9 heavens living soil, Su Zimo would have to try it himself. Now that the green lotus true body had grown to grade 9 and derived this utmost treasure, it transformed immediately and enveloped the surroundings of the creation lotus platform, protecting Su Zimo's essence spirit within. Although the lightning tide outside surged, it was blocked by the 9 heavens living soil. Within the 9 heavens living soil, the initially bare creation lotus platform began to emanate vitality. There were 81 lotus holes in the middle of the lotus platform. The lotus holes spewed out rays of green light that filled the skies and repelled the surrounding lightning tide in a bedazzling manner. A moment later, the lightning tide gradually subsided. The thunderclouds in the skies gradually dispersed as well. The skies above the East Sea lit up once more. The dull and shuddering pressure dissipated as well, and the blue skies above the firmaments reappeared. All the living beings of the 10,000 races heaved a sigh of relief when they saw that. It was over. The martial emperor's tribulation transcendence attracted the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation, and there were a total of 36 lightning tribulations. This scene would definitely be recorded in history. Under countless gazes, the creation green lotus grew once more from the 9 heavens living soil. The lotus leaves were crystalline and gigantic lotus petals blossomed one after another, shimmering with light. Finally, the creation green lotus vanished and Su Zimo's figure appeared. Dressed in green robes, his black hair draped over his shoulders, and he had refined features. His aura had already turned unfathomable. Initially, the flesh of the grade 8 green lotus true body could not compare to the dragon phoenix true body. Among the 3 true bodies, the green lotus true body was also weaker in combat. But now that the green lotus true body had transformed to grade 9, his combat strength was definitely not weaker than the dragon phoenix true body. Of course, the greatest gain for the green lotus true body after it grew to grade 9 was still the 9 heavens living soil. On the other side, the dragon phoenix true body relied on the bronze square tripod to barely survive. His body was severely injured and his essence chi was greatly injured as he tried his best to recover. The martial Tao prime body's tribulation transcendence was the most peaceful and smooth. Even the final 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation did not pose much of a threat to the martial Tao prime body. Right then, 3 milky white beams of light descended from the firmaments, emitting a strange power that enveloped Su Zimo's 3 true bodies. Everyone watched in shock with fixed gazes. The milky white beam of light emitted powerful life force that surged into the dragon phoenix true body. The injuries of the dragon phoenix true body healed at a visible speed. In less than 10 breaths, the dragon phoenix true body recovered completely. At the same time, the 3 milky white beams of light possessed a powerful suction force and wanted to soar into the air with the 3 true bodies and ascend. The three beams of light seemed to be a passage that connected the upper and lower worlds. The Dragon Phoenix True Body and Green Lotus True Body did not defend against that power and relaxed their bodies. They followed the suction force and rose slowly into the air under the gazes of the living beings of the 10,000 races, flying towards the unknown upper world. Chapter 1781, Divine Punishment. Chapter 1781, Divine Punishment. The Dragon Phoenix True Body and Green Lotus True Body transformed into two spots of light and disappeared at the end of the firmaments before long. The two milky white beams of light dissipated as well. When the experts of Tianhuang mainland retracted their gazes, they noticed something unusual. The third milky white beam of light still penetrated the world and enveloped the Martial Dao Prime Body. The Martial Dao Prime Body did not leave and continued standing in midair, looking up at the skies. What's the Martial Emperor's third true body doing? I'm not sure. He seems to be resisting the guidance of the upper world. Many experts discussed in shock. The milky white beam of light intensified and a powerful suction force acted on the Martial Dao Prime Body, wanting to take him away from Tianhuang mainland. However, the Martial Dao Prime Body remained unmoved. Both parties exerted strength and the Martial Dao Prime Body channeled his blood qi slowly. In the end, he even conjured a bloodline phenomenon, a gigantic furnace that burned furiously in midair to fight against the power of guidance. Before this tribulation transcendence, Su Zimo had already made his decision. The Dragon Phoenix True Body and Green Lotus True Body would undergo tribulation transcendence at the same time and ascend to the upper world. However, his Martial Dao Prime Body would choose to stay in Tianhuang mainland. Firstly, the sort of dangers and living beings he would encounter upon arriving in the upper world was completely unknown. If he left the Martial Dao Prime Body in Tianhuang mainland, he would not die even if the Dragon Phoenix True Body and Green Lotus True Body encountered any variables. One day, the Martial Dao Prime Body would still be able to ascend to the upper world. Secondly, Su Zimo had many old friends in Tianhuang mainland. For example, Xiaoning had only just entered the Mahayana realm. She would have to cultivate for a long time before she could attempt the tribulation transcendence. Su Zimo was the most worried about Xiaoning. Of course, apart from Xiaoning, there were also Monkey, Night Spirit and his siblings as well as bosom buddies like Little Fatty, Ji Qingtian, Leng Ro and Lin Xuanji. There was also Nian Qi and Tao Yao, his two disciples. With so many old friends still in Tianhuang mainland, Su Zimo would be worried if he were to leave right away. Third, Su Zimo wanted to sever some karma. What is the Martial Emperor thinking? Why is he resisting the guidance of the upper world? A commotion broke out in the crowd. He's probably worried about some old friends in Tianhuang mainland, someone guessed. Another person said, however, if that's the case, why bother to undergo the tribulation transcendence? Now that he has passed the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation, he chose to defend against the guidance of the upper world. This is no longer heaven-defying. He's challenging the rules of the heavenly Tao. That's right. This is a dangerous move that might attract divine punishment. Tribulation transcendence was a necessary step. The Martial Dao Prime Body could only continue cultivating after tribulation transcendence. Back when experts of the upper world descended, they were all killed by Dai Yu and left behind many treasures and cultivation resources. However, those treasures could not be refined and absorbed without experiencing the tribulation transcendence. The Martial Dao Prime Body wanted to continue cultivating in the lower world. Zimo, why are you doing this? In the crowd, a woman in a pale yellow robe looked at the figure above the East Sea and murmured worriedly. Sister, could he be staying for your sake? At the side, a girl in pink with a veil asked softly. The yellow-robed woman frowned and pursed her red lips. Her heart was completely focused on the person above the East Sea and she did not hear what the girl beside her was saying. The power of guidance was still increasing within the milky white beam of light. The Martial Dao Prime Body did not relax at all. After his bloodline phenomenon, for fate rings were released as well, forming 4 purple halos behind him that almost broke through the milky white column of light. The clash between the two powers was silent. However, everyone from Tianhuang mainland watched nervously with sweaty palms. That was because the void above the East Sea was twisting wildly, disintegrating and collapsing. It shattered against the confrontation of the two powers. "Old man, what will happen if Brother Su continues to resist?" Lin Xuanji could not help but ask. The storyteller had a grim expression as he said slowly, "Nobody knows what will happen. After all, something like this is unprecedented." After a brief pause, he sighed. "The martial emperor is going against the will of the heavens and challenging the rules of the heavenly Tao." Although the storyteller did not continue, Lin Xuanji's heart sank. He could tell that the storyteller was implying that Su Zimo's actions would probably attract trouble. Before long, the milky white light that pierced through the world gradually dissipated. The figure of the martial Tao prime body reappeared and stood on the East Sea. His face was a little pale, but his gaze was still calm. This struggle consumed a lot of the martial Tao prime body as well. He had just passed through the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation and was almost exhausted after resisting the power of guidance from the upper world. Is it over? The guidance failed and gave up. It decided to allow the martial emperor to stay in the lower world. The living beings of the 10,000 races had different expressions. This scene seemed to be vastly different from what they had imagined. Suddenly, a crack appeared in the firmaments. An extremely terrifying might emanated from the crack with a chilling killing intent that threatened to destroy everything. Crack. There was a deafening bang. A purple thunderbolt descended from the skies and arrived instantly, descending on the martial Tao prime body. Everywhere the purple thunderbolt passed, the world was sliced into 2. The living beings of the 10,000 races were shocked. The emperors were astounded. Nobody could describe the power of that purple thunderbolt. The might of the purple thunderbolt was far less shocking than the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation. However, the combined power of the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation was far inferior to the killing power of the purple thunderbolt. The purple thunderbolt seemed to be a punishment from the heavens that wanted to destroy all living beings who wanted to challenge the will of the heavens and the rules of the heavenly Tao. It was too fast. The moment the purple light flashed, the purple thunderbolt had already landed on the martial Tao prime body. Boom! A series of blood lights burst forth from the purple light. Right in front of everyone, the martial Tao prime body was destroyed in body and soul by the purple thunderbolt without a corpse left. All the living beings who saw that widened their eyes and mouths instinctively. The emperors even forgot to breathe and froze on the spot. All the emperors had witnessed the strength of the martial Tao prime body before. Even the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation could not destroy the martial Tao prime body. However, the purple thunderbolt destroyed him with ease and shattered his soul. A moment later, the crack in the firmaments closed slowly. It was as though the purple thunderbolt earlier on was a hallucination of the living beings of the 10,000 races. However, above the East Sea, the figure that looked down on the world and history was completely destroyed by the purple thunderbolt and became a thing of the past. Sigh. Many experts shook their heads and sighed. The martial emperor has clearly succeeded in his tribulation transcendence, but he still wanted to provoke the heavens. It's truly a little. He can't blame anyone for his ending. No matter what, the 2 true bodies of the martial emperor succeeded in the tribulation transcendence and have already ascended to the upper world. At the very least, he managed to retain them. That's already quite a blessing. The living beings of the 10,000 races discussed and lingered around the East Sea for a long time. Some experts even wanted to search for the storage bag of the martial Tao prime body, but to no avail. Against that power, his storage bag should have turned into ashes. That was what many experts thought. Actually, the moment the purple thunderbolt descended on the martial Tao prime body, no one noticed that a silver light fell into the East Sea and vanished under the cover of the blazing purple light. Chapter 1782, Tribulation Fire. Chapter 1782, Tribulation Fire. As Su Zimo's two true bodies ascended, the martial Tao prime body was destroyed in body and soul by the purple divine punishment. The living beings of the 10,000 races lingered around the East Sea for a long time before dispersing. The martial emperor's ascension this time round had a huge impact on the living beings of the 10,000 races. Some living beings even chose to sit by the East Sea and comprehend the Tao. Some experts gave up on the thought of tribulation transcendence and ascension completely. However, some people had even firmer Tao hearts. Nobody noticed that a silver light floated and fell into the depths of the East Sea. When Su Zimo underwent tribulation transcendence, no living being dared to linger in the vicinity of the East Sea that was enveloped by the tribulation clouds. Naturally, no living being in the depths of the sea discovered the existence of that silver light. It was a silver mask. The silver mask came from the upper world and landed on Tianhuang mainland at the same time as the bronze square tripod. Furthermore, there was a drop of sentient blood in the mask. It caused the mask to turn blood red. However, the drop of blood was imprisoned by the martial spirit fire and red lotus karmic fire of the martial Tao prime body, causing the mask to revert to its original appearance. Since the martial Tao prime body decided to disobey the will of the heavenly Tao, he had already expected a divine punishment or heavenly tribulation to descend. His combat strength was invincible in the lower world. However, a divine punishment as such could destroy him with ease. Therefore, the silver mask was the final trump card of the martial Tao prime body. When the divine punishment descended, the martial Tao prime body had already sensed that he could not defend against it. Therefore, the martial Tao prime body made a prompt decision and hid a drop of essence blood in the silver mask. Indeed, his body was struck into nothingness by the divine punishment. However, the silver mask fell into the depths of the sea unscathed against the divine punishment. At the bottom of the East Sea, a drop of essence blood suddenly flew out from the silver mask. A powerful divine power spread, and in the blink of an eye, the figure of the martial Tao prime body reappeared with a terrifying aura. Blood rebirth. Under normal circumstances, the heavenly Tao rules did not allow the power of the upper world to appear in the lower worlds. That was the reason why those who underwent tribulation transcendence would ascend to the upper world. Furthermore, it was difficult for experts of the upper world to descend as well. Even if they did, they would suffer immense punishment. However, what the martial Tao prime body did was equivalent to concealing the heavenly secrets and deceiving the world. The tribulation transcendence allowed heaven and earth essence chi to baptize his flesh and essence spirit. While he obtained the power of the upper world, he stayed in the lower world. The existence of the martial Tao prime body was a variable to begin with. It was beyond the 3 realms and 5 elements. However, as long as the martial Tao prime body cultivated, he would leave behind traces in the lower world and enter the cycle of the heavenly Tao. Therefore, when the martial Tao prime body underwent tribulation transcendence, the heavenly Tao would sense it and send down a heavenly tribulation. This time round, the martial Tao prime body made use of the divine punishment to erase his traces once more and escape the cycle of the heavenly Tao. The martial Tao prime body had a calm expression as he picked up the silver mask casually and swiped his palm gently in front of him. A deep crack appeared in the depths of the sea, but the seawater could not surge in. The martial Tao prime body entered in a flash and disappeared into the depths of the East Sea. The crack closed, and before long, the bottom of the East Sea returned to normal. North Region, Pingyang Town. Suddenly, a crack appeared in the courtyard of Su Zimo's residence and the figure of the martial Tao prime body appeared, walking out slowly. Young master. Not far away, an obedient and tender boy walked forward and called out softly with a delighted expression. The boy was Tao Yao. Tao Yao carried a storage bag and handed it to the martial Tao prime body, saying joyfully, "Young master, here." The martial Tao prime body only told a single person about his decision, Tao Yao. Before the martial Tao prime body underwent the tribulation transcendence, he made some arrangements. He imparted the earth-slaying sword art to the green lotus true body and left behind the essence condensation elixirs and essence spirit stones from the experts of the upper world, as well as the drop of imprisoned blood in a storage bag. In order to prevent any accidents, the martial Tao Prime Body handed his storage bag to Tao Yao for safekeeping. Indeed, the descent of the divine punishment almost destroyed everything. The body of the martial Tao Prime Body did not even have a corpse left. If he had his storage bag with him, it would have been destroyed a long time ago. The martial Tao Prime Body received the storage bag and his spirit consciousness moved, retrieving the drop of imprisoned blood within. At that moment, the cage formed by the martial spirit fire and red lotus karmic fire could not injure the foundation of that drop of blood and could only imprison it within. Who are you? The martial Tao Prime Body asked. What's the origin of this silver mask and the bronze square tripod? The drop of blood remained motionless in the cage without any response. Answer whatever I ask lest you suffer. The martial Tao Prime Body said blandly. Humph. When the drop of blood heard the threat of the martial Tao Prime Body, it finally could not help but sneer. Your strength is not enough to threaten me. I'm the great Lord Heavenly Wolf. If you let me go now, I can even impart to you some cultivation techniques and secret skills that will last you a lifetime. If you continue to be stubborn, I'll definitely skin you alive and burn your bones into ashes when my master is born. Heavenly Wolf? The martial Tao Prime Body raised his brows slightly and asked, Who is your master? My master is the great. Heavenly Wolf seemed to have realized something and shut its mouth hurriedly. The martial Tao Prime Body smiled indifferently. It's fine if you don't say it. I can let you try out the technique I just comprehended. As he said that, the martial Tao Prime Body channeled his essence spirit and pinched his fingertip, igniting a blue flame. The flame exuded a shuddering aura that seemed familiar. This was not a divine power. That aura was extremely similar to the heavenly tribulation that descended earlier on. What is that? Heavenly Wolf dodged and hollered. The martial Tao Prime Body said, This is a power I comprehended when I was undergoing tribulation transcendence. I call it the tribulation fire. Tribulation was an extremely special power and no one knew how it was born. Tribulation seemed to exist through the ages and coexisted with heaven and earth. There were all sorts of forms and they were everywhere. At the Mahayana realm, there was the divine power tribulation. There was a heavenly tribulation if one wanted to ascend. There might be other tribulations in the upper world. The 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation was not much of a threat to the martial Tao Prime Body. That was the reason why he could comprehend the origin of the heavenly tribulation while undergoing the tribulation transcendence and condense it in the form of flames. The heavenly tribulation descended in the form of lightning. As for the martial Tao Prime Body, he controlled a heavenly tribulation in the form of flames. In other words, if the martial Tao Prime Body wanted to, he could even replace the heavenly Tao and send down a heavenly tribulation on Tianhuang mainland right now. The power of the tribulation fire condensed by the martial Tao Prime Body right now was comparable to the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation. The level 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation was sky blue. Furthermore, as the cultivation of the martial Tao Prime Body advanced, the power of the tribulation fire would continue to increase. The martial Tao Prime Body tapped his fingertip gently and fused the sky blue tribulation fire into the flaming cage in midair. Apart from the martial spirit fire and the red lotus karmic fire, there was now another tribulation fire in the cage. Whoosh! The flames intensified. Ah! 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 Heavenly Wolf's tragic cries sounded in unbearable pain. Chapter 1783, Killing Intent of the Upper World. Chapter 1783, Killing Intent of the Upper World. When the 3 balls of flames burned and refined the drop of blood at the same time, Heavenly Wolf let out a tragic howl and could barely hold on. If it was just the power of the lower world, it would be difficult for the martial Tao Prime Body to threaten Heavenly Wolf no matter how many divine powers he comprehended or fused. That was the reason why Heavenly Wolf was fearless. But now, the martial Tao Prime Body underwent tribulation transcendence and fused with the heaven and earth essence chi. While obtaining the power of the upper world, he deceived the world and made use of the divine punishment to erase his traces in the lower world, staying behind. the tribulation fire could already threaten Heavenly Wolf. As time passed by, the martial Tao prime body would fuse the heaven and earth essence chi with the martial spirit fire and red lotus karmic fire, and the power of the two balls of flames would increase significantly. At that time, he would truly be burned to ashes. The martial Tao prime body had a calm expression and a deep gaze as he said coldly, "You joined forces with Blood Fiend and caused so many calamities in Tianhuang mainland. My patience with you is limited. That's none of my business." Heavenly Wolf shrieked, "I merely imparted some cultivation techniques to him and guided his cultivation. I've never participated in his actions." Although the martial Tao prime body remained silent, the flames in the cage intensified. Under the boundless starry skies, two milky white beams of light tore through the world and two figures flew towards the upper world rapidly. It was a mysterious sensation. Su Zimo felt as though he had passed through layers of barriers and was getting closer to the vast starry sky above him, flying towards another world. At that moment, the two true bodies showed no signs of separating and were not far apart. On the other side, under the healing of the milky white beam of light, the injuries of the dragon phoenix true body had already recovered. At that moment, he was holding the bronze square tripod and observing it carefully. After Su Zimo obtained the bronze square tripod, although he tried to refine it as his destiny dermic weapon, there was no reaction from it. Su Zimo could not use the bronze square tripod to release any divine powers or dermic arts either. Therefore, he rarely used it. He had tried to repair the bronze square tripod before as well. Although the bronze square tripod was filled with cracks and was almost smashed into pieces, it was still incomparably tough and invulnerable to fire, water, and could not be repaired. But now that it endured the baptism of the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation, the bronze square tripod was infused with a lot of heaven and earth essence chi as well. There was finally a reaction from the tripod. A faint light shone from the crack of the tripod. The dragon phoenix true body stared fixedly at the bronze square tripod and observed it carefully, gradually discovering something unusual. There seemed to be 4 patterns etched on the outer walls of the bronze square tripod. However, the tripod was severely shattered and Su Zimo could not tell what patterns were etched on the walls. The green lotus true body that was not far away from the dragon phoenix true body was looking down with a hint of shock in his eyes. He was getting further and further away from Tianhuang mainland. In his vision, Tianhuang mainland became smaller and smaller, gradually turning into a spot of light. At that moment, Su Zimo looked down and saw that there were millions of such spots of light in the vast universe below, countless like a river of sand. These spots of light must be the billion minor kiliocosms. Su Zimo thought to himself. It was these endless minor kiliocosms that formed the entire lower world. Tianhuang mainland was merely a speck of sand in the vast river of sand. It was tiny and insignificant compared to the entire lower world. It was only now that Su Zimo truly understood what the human emperor had said to him. In the upper world, there were countless paragons and monster incarnates. Emperors of the lower world ascended and most of them became ordinary people in the upper world. There's a saying in the Buddhist sutras that there's a world in a sand. Could this billion minor kiliocosms really be a handful of gravel left behind by some big shot? Su Zimo's imagination ran wild. Right then, a gigantic shadow swept past him. Shocked, Su Zimo turned over. Through the milky white beam of light, Su Zimo could clearly see that the gigantic shadow was an incomparably massive star. The surface of the star was uneven with mountains and ravines. Wild winds howled and sand and rocks flew without any signs of life. However, that star still emitted an extremely vast power, as though it could devour all living beings. In the face of that star, Su Zimo was like a speck of dust. Those were true stars. In Tianhuang mainland, all living beings looked up at the starry skies. Right now, Su Zimo was truly beside a star. Su Zimo's gaze continued to extend. In the vast void, there were countless stars and celestial bodies floating. Some of them were circular stars while others looked like floating continents. He could even sense signs of life from some of the celestial bodies. In fact, many strange living beings even ran out from some of the continents and looked at Su Zimo, who was ascending curiously. The entire world and the massive universe were extremely vast. There were countless living beings and races of all shapes and sizes. All of them had different legends in their respective worlds. Su Zimo was only one of them. Right then, the milky white beam of light on the dragon phoenix true body suddenly shifted and flew in a direction. As for the green lotus true body, he flew in another direction as though he was pulled by an inexplicable gravity. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Diyu had once said that the dragon phoenix true body had the highest chance of ascending to one of the three worlds, the dragon, parasol tree, or great wilderness. The green lotus true body could ascend to the heavenly world. The current scene should be a sign that the two true bodies had ascended to two different worlds. Su Zimo had a calm expression. He could only allow himself to be drawn in by that power and could not do anything about it. He could not choose which world he wanted to ascend to. Suddenly, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat, as though something terrifying was about to descend on him. His expression changed. Ever since he started cultivating, he had never felt such a terrifying sense of trepidation. Back when he was at the Void Reversion Realm, he was hunted by experts of the half-martial ancestor. Even against such strong foes, there was never such a huge reaction. Suddenly, an unimaginable might descended. Against that might, the milky white beams of light that enveloped the two true bodies cracked and let out a jarring sound. Boom! Immediately after, a loud bang sounded above Su Zimo's head. Instinctively, he looked up. A gigantic palm enveloped his two true bodies. Su Zimo's pupils constricted violently. The terror of that palm had already surpassed his imagination. The stars that floated beside him earlier on were as tiny as gravel against that palm. Boom! 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 Before the palm descended, many stars and celestial bodies in the surrounding void shattered and turned into ashes. The living beings in those stars and celestial bodies could not resist at all and were killed in the blink of an eye. Chapter 1784, King Yunyu. Chapter 1784, King Yunyu. A single palm could destroy many stars and celestial bodies with ease. That power was completely beyond Su Zimo's understanding. The cruelty behind it made Su Zimo's heart turn cold. In the eyes of the owner of the palm, the lives of the living beings on the stars were like grass and were killed without hesitation. However, that palm was clearly aimed at him. Su Zimo truly could not imagine how he had attracted such a terrifying enemy before he even ascended to the upper world. More than that, he had not expected to encounter such a calamity when he was ascending. In other words, this person had even predicted his ascension and arrived a step earlier to kill him. This person knew very well that he might not be able to kill Su Zimo if the latter were to ascend to another world. Su Zimo's eyes widened. He could not move at all against the aura released by the gigantic hand. Before the terrifying palm descended, the aura and pressure released by it was enough to restrict Su Zimo completely. Su Zimo felt a sense of helplessness. That was an absolute suppression through strength. Even when he faced the experts of the upper world back then, he did not feel this way. Fufufu. Suddenly, a cold laughter sounded from the starry skies. "And, we meet again." The voice sounded once more. Su Zimo was shocked. That voice sounded familiar. It's that person. A figure flashed through Su Zimo's mind and his heart sank. Back then, experts of the upper world descended upon Tianhuang mainland one after another. In the end, a white-robed man who referred to himself as a king appeared. In fact, he could locate the existence of the Green Lotus true body in Tianhuang mainland with a single thought and was extremely powerful. Furthermore, he learned from Dai Yu that what descended on Tianhuang mainland was only a clone of the white-robed man. Dai Yu had once told Su Zimo that this person had a high status in the heavenly world and was a king who could rule over an entire area. Unfortunately, that person met Dai Yu and his clone was destroyed. Furthermore, Dai Yu snatched away his Dao fruit. Right now, the Dao fruit was in the hands of the martial Dao prime body. Dai Yu had once told Su Zimo to be careful of this person if he ascended to the heavenly world. However, Su Zimo had not expected that this person would attack him before he could ascend to the upper world. I don't care what your relationship with that blood butterfly is. Since she destroyed one of my clones, I'll make you pay for it. The white-robed man's voice sounded once more, his tone cold and filled with resentment. Su Zimo knew in his heart that the white-robed man was not only here for revenge, but also for his green lotus true body. Indeed, the white-robed man said coldly, initially, I intended to raise your dragon phoenix clone as an immortal pet. However, since my clone was destroyed, your clone will have to die with me. Don't worry, I won't kill your green lotus true body immediately. I still want to refine your true body into immortal herbs and elixirs to cultivate. The moment he said that, the gigantic palm closed slowly. A terrifying pressure descended on the dragon phoenix true body instantly. Crack. 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 The sound of bones cracking could be heard from the dragon phoenix true body. It was an endless pain that seeped into his soul. The dragon phoenix true body could not move at all. Against that power, his bones shattered bit by bit and his life force was destroyed. During this process, although the dragon phoenix essence spirit could not move, the situation was incomparably terrible as it felt the pain from various parts of its body. Under the immense pressure, the dragon phoenix true body had already begun to transform and distort. Given the white-robed man's methods, he could probably crush the dragon phoenix true body with a single finger. But now, the white-robed man was slowly destroying the dragon phoenix true body to torture Su Zimo. He wanted Su Zimo to experience that pain and despair personally. The scales of the dragon phoenix true body had already turned into dust. In a short dozens of breaths, the bones of the dragon phoenix true body were completely crushed by that terrifying power. For the dragon phoenix true body, those dozens of breaths seemed like hundreds of years had passed. The dragon phoenix true body wanted to vent but could not and could only endure the pain silently. Before long, the destructive pressure seeped into the organs of the dragon phoenix true body. Even his scales, flesh and bones could not withstand that power. In the blink of an eye, the organs of the dragon phoenix true body were crushed into pieces without any life. The dragon phoenix true body was covered in blood and was already unrecognizable. He was almost squeezed into a blood-colored meatball by the powerful force. Fufufu. The white-robed man's laughter continued. He seemed to be very satisfied with his masterpiece. That's the bloodline of the dragon phoenix. It would be a pity. Suddenly, another voice sounded in the starry skies. He's just a beast that ascended from the lower world. There's nothing to pity. This humanoid creation green lotus is the true utmost treasure. The white-robed man replied. Although Su Zimo's vision was completely blocked by the gigantic hand above his head, it was clear that there was someone else in the starry skies apart from the white-robed man. Suddenly, the voice exclaimed softly, this tripod can actually defend against your power and isn't completely crippled yet? What lousy tripod is that? Why is it shattered to such an extent? The white-robed man added, seemingly puzzled as well. Right then, another domineering power burst forth from the starry skies and struck the white-robed man's palm. Boom! The two powers collided with a loud bang and the surrounding starry skies trembled slightly. King Yunyu, as an immortal king, you're actually so despicable as to interfere with the ascension of living beings from the lower worlds. Immediately after, a woman's shout sounded from the starry skies. Humph. The white-robed man harumphed coldly. Where did this crazy woman come from? You're not qualified to comment on my actions. You can't stop me either. Although that was the case, Su Zimo felt his body lighten when the woman interfered and fought against King Yunyu. Although the suffocating aura of death was still lingering around him, he was temporarily freed from his imprisoned state and could move again. Without hesitation, the Dragon Phoenix Essence Spirit broke free from the battered Dragon Phoenix True Body and hid in the bronze square tripod, speeding towards the Green Lotus True Body. The body of the Dragon Phoenix True Body had already lost its life force and was completely severed from the Dragon Phoenix Essence Spirit. There was no need to heal it. Blood rebirth. The Dragon Phoenix Essence Spirit hid in the bronze square tripod and channeled its divine powers hurriedly, wanting to reconstruct its body. However, the divine power dissipated the moment it was released. There was no flesh around the Dragon Phoenix Essence Spirit. When he noticed that, Su Zimo's expression turned cold and his heart sank. Chapter 1785, Spirit and Flesh Separation. Chapter 1785, Spirit and Flesh Separation. Humph. As though he sensed Su Zimo's intentions, King Yunyu could not help but sneer. As expected of a frog in the well. How ignorant. You still want to release that blood rebirth technique after leaving your inferior lower world? I said that I'm going to destroy one of your clones. Your clone will definitely be crippled and no one will be able to save you. In that short period of time, the battered and exhausted Dragon Phoenix True Body had already fallen. Su Zimo had not expected to encounter such a calamity before he even ascended to the upper world. He had not expected that his blood rebirth would be useless in these boundless starry skies. Su Zimo's expression was dark and his gaze was cold. At that moment, the Dragon Phoenix Essence Spirit had just arrived beside him with the bronze square tripod. The bronze square tripod was his only hope of survival. Although, even that was a slim chance in these starry skies against such a great enemy. Su Zimo looked at the gradually disappearing Dragon Phoenix True Body and his mind raced as he thought of countermeasures. This Dragon Phoenix True Body had cultivated for so many years and was transformed from his initial mortal body. Was he going to give up just like that? However, what could he do if he did not give up? The life force of this Dragon Phoenix True Body had already been destroyed by the King Yunyu and there was no chance of him reviving. If he wanted to use blood rebirth, the Dragon Phoenix Essence Spirit would have to return to the lower world and Tianhuang mainland. However, he had already ascended through the Tribulation Transcendence and left the lower world. If he returned now, he would be stopped by the laws of the lower world. Dayu mended the heavens and the laws were complete. There was no way the Dragon Phoenix Essence Spirit could return to Tianhuang mainland. Furthermore, the prerequisite of blood rebirth was that one had to possess a drop of bloodline with life force. As for the bloodline life force of the Dragon Phoenix True Body, it was completely destroyed by King Yunyu. Even if the Dragon Phoenix Essence Spirit returned to the lower world, it would be useless. In a flash, Su Zimo's eyes flashed coldly and he made up his mind. Abandon the Dragon Phoenix True Body. Abandoning it did not mean that the Dragon Phoenix True Body would disappear. The dilapidated Dragon Phoenix True Body had no life force and would fall back to Tianhuang mainland along the original path under the shattered milky white beam of light. The laws of the lower world restricted living beings and everything that possessed life. Things such as the withered creation lotus platform, heaven-slaying sword art, earth-slaying sword art and bronze square tripod would not be restricted by the laws of the lower world. As for the Dragon Phoenix True Body, he would naturally not be stopped after his life force was destroyed by King Yunyu and he fell to Tianhuang mainland. Furthermore, the Martial Dao Prime Body was still in Tianhuang mainland. Su Zimo's decision was to separate his spirit and flesh. Since the Dragon Phoenix True Body could no longer be saved, he would let it return to Tianhuang mainland and pass it to the Martial Dao Prime Body. With the help of the Martial Dao Furnace, he could refine it and fuse it into his Prime Body. The Martial Dao Prime Body was originally conjured by the Martial Dao Fruit and did not have a body of flesh. This time round, if the Martial Dao Prime Body could fuse the Dragon Phoenix True Body, which was Su Zimo's initial body, into his body, he would completely be the Prime Body. The physical body of the Dragon Phoenix would be handed to the Prime Body. As for the Dragon Phoenix Essence Spirit, he would leave it to the Green Lotus True Body. Those two essence spirits were cultivated by Su Zimo to begin with and were one. If they could fuse once more, it would mean a lot to Su Zimo. The fusion of the two essence spirits was also an obvious boost to Su Zimo's strength. The most direct thing was definitely the increase in the power of his essence spirit. More importantly, the many divine powers and secret skills comprehended by the Dragon Phoenix essence spirit would fuse into Su Zimo's body without losing them. This was way too important for Su Zimo. The Dragon Phoenix true body knew many powerful divine powers and secret skills. If he lost them just like that, it would be an irreparable loss for Su Zimo. However, that would not have happened if his essence spirits could fuse. In other words, if Su Zimo's idea succeeded, although the Dragon Phoenix true body was destroyed, it would fuse into the body of the Martial Dao Prime body and Green Lotus true body and exist in another way. Of course, the prerequisite was that Su Zimo could escape this calamity. Boom! 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 Although the woman who appeared later on did not appear in the starry skies, she fought against King Yunyu and released a violent fluctuation. Humph! King Yunyu sneered, "You want to interfere in my affairs after merely forming a minor grotto heaven? You must have a death wish." Before his sentence was finished, King Yunyu attacked once more. Boom! Boom! The starry skies trembled. In the depths of the starry skies, the woman grunted. During this process, Su Zimo had long hidden in the bronze square tripod with the Dragon Phoenix essence spirit. He wanted to control the bronze square tripod and escape from this place. However, the energy fluctuation released by the battle outside attacked the bronze square tripod continuously. Su Zimo was completely helpless against that terrifying power. He could only hide in the bronze square tripod and collide everywhere in the chaotic power, scurrying through the nearby starry skies helplessly. Although Su Zimo could not see the situation outside, it was clear that the woman was not a match for King Yunyu. More importantly, King Yunyu was not alone. If anyone else joined forces with King Yunyu, that woman would definitely be defeated. I wonder who that woman is. I hope she's fine. Su Zimo thought to himself. His life and death was no longer up to him and he could only leave it up to fate. Right now, Su Zimo merely hoped that this woman would not be implicated because of him. The aura outside was getting more berserk. Su Zimo threw out the 9 heavens living soil and a ball of yellow sand sealed the mouth of the tripod as he curled his body within. He took a deep breath of air and with a single thought, the Dragon Phoenix essence spirit entered the consciousness of the Green Lotus true body. One of them had shoulder-length scarlet hair and was filled with demonic chi while the other had elegant black hair that was ethereal. Gritting his teeth, Su Zimo controlled his mind and the two essence spirits collided. The two human figures fused and released a violent spirit consciousness fluctuation. Ugh! As though he was struck by lightning, Su Zimo shuddered and grunted. His vision darkened and he almost fainted. Initially, he thought that he shouldn't encounter much resistance fusing the two essence spirits since they came from the same origin. However, in reality, the forceful fusion of the two essence spirits still resulted in an intense clash. Neither side gave in and they were almost destroyed on the spot. Actually, if the two essence spirits were fused at their birth, there wouldn't be much danger. But now, the two essence spirits were separate individuals. One of them had already become a taboo dragon phoenix and its demonic chi was torrential. The other was an utmost treasure of the universe that was filled with a resplendent glow. Although the two essence spirits came from the same origin, they were completely different. This fusion was simply courting death. Even King Yunyu and the others who were fighting in the starry skies would not dare to do that, let alone Su Zimo who had just ascended. In reality, if not for the fact that the Dragon Phoenix true body was destroyed and Su Zimo was forced into such a desperate situation, he would not have taken the risk to fuse two essence spirits. But now, he had no other choice. Even if he stopped, both essence spirits had already suffered immense damage that could not be salvaged. He could only rely on his powerful will to try his best to maintain his clarity and fuse forcefully. Su Zimo did not realize that his current actions were already half a step into the gates of hell. If he did not stop, the two essence spirits would not fuse. Instead, they would die together and their souls would dissipate. Chapter 1786, Illumination Nether Glow. Chapter 1786, Illumination Nether Glow. The battle outside the bronze square tripod was getting more intense, and the mysterious woman that appeared later was clearly not a match for King Yunyu. The surrounding starry skies trembled in the collision of the two experts, as though they could not withstand the impact of the power. If the mysterious woman was defeated, Su Zimo would definitely die as well. But now, Su Zimo was also facing immense danger within the bronze square tripod. The Dragon Phoenix Essence Spirit and Green Lotus Essence Spirit were irreconcilable and intertwined. Although the two Essence Spirits came from the same origin, they had already undergone a complete transformation up till this point of their cultivation. The forceful fusion caused an intense conflict to break out. Ah! Curled up, Su Zimo hugged his head with both hands and growled from the bronze square tripod. A sharp pain shot through his mind and seeped into his bones. He felt as though his head was about to explode. Su Zimo's features were contorted and green veins popped out on his neck. His aura was intermittently weak and strong, fluctuating as though he could die at any moment. In the process, his consciousness had long turned blurry. If not for his strong willpower and unshakable Tao heart, he would have fainted from the impact of the pain. At that moment, the two essence spirits had already fused, but the scarlet and green lights did not relent, illuminating one another. Even if Su Zimo wanted to separate the two essence spirits, he could no longer do it. As time passed by, the conflict between the two essence spirits intensified. Dong! 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 The sharp pain in his mind almost caused Su Zimo to break down. He clenched his fists and smashed the inner wall of the bronze square tripod repeatedly with dull thuds. Su Zimo released all his strength and hammered the walls of the tripod wildly. In fact, he did not even notice that his fist was dripping with blood. The pain on his body was not even a fraction of the pain caused by the fusion of his essence spirit in his mind. Ah! 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 Su Zimo let out a deep growl from the depths of his throat and his consciousness was blurry. He scratched around wildly and his fingernails broke as they crossed the cracks of the tripod. In the blink of an eye, his fingers were mangled. Fingers were connected to the heart and the pain finally eased the situation slightly. Even so, the pain in his mind surged like a tide and struck Su Zimo's spirit. Su Zimo closed his eyes tightly with a pained expression and continued grabbing wildly in the dark and cramped bronze square tripod. Suddenly, his fingertips seemed to have accidentally touched a hard stone in a corner of the bronze square tripod. Immediately after, he felt a sharp pain in his mind. The stone seemed to have entered his body through his finger and entered his mind. It was a familiar feeling. It seemed like... Ah! Suddenly, Su Zimo howled and opened his eyes. It was as though a pitch-black stone had appeared in his left eye. In a flash, his entire left eye had turned pitch-black. However, his right eye had turned completely white. It was like a blazing sun that was embedded in his right eye, emitting a blinding light that illuminated the dark bronze square tripod like daylight. A dark and deep light emanated from Su Zimo's left eye as well, as though it wanted to devour everything. At that moment, Su Zimo regained his senses. It's the illumination stone. Su Zimo thought to himself. Earlier on, apart from the bronze square tripod, the illumination stone was the only thing that was intact against the attack of King Yunyu. The Dragon Phoenix true body was destroyed and his flesh, tendons, bones and organs were shattered. The illumination stone was also squeezed out by the power and fell into the bronze square tripod. Even the Dragon Phoenix Essence Spirit did not notice it. To think that by some freak coincidence, the illumination stone would also enter the Green Lotus true body and fuse with his right eye. Illumination and nether glow had immense backgrounds and were definitely not items from the lower world. Illumination contained the unyielding power of extreme yang. Nether glow contained the cold and dark power of extreme yin. Back in Tianhuang mainland, when he fought against the emperors of the primordial races, Su Zimo's two true bodies released two visual techniques that transformed into yin-yang fishes that bit one another. Under the entanglement of the yin-yang fishes, the thousand-eye emperor's supreme divine power dissipated before it could truly form. However, the power of the yin-yang fishes continued to rise and was even out of his control. Su Zimo hurriedly severed one of the powers to break the pursuit of the yin-yang fishes and disperse the terrifying power. Even so, blood flowed out of Su Zimo's eyes at that time. If he did not stop in time, Su Zimo might have been destroyed by the pursuit of the yin-yang fishes. But now that the illumination and nether glow were gathered in a single body, the yin-yang fishes had reappeared. However, the yin-yang fishes this time round did not appear outside. The illumination stone was in the dragon phoenix true body's body all year round and was connected by bloodline. The power of extreme yang fused with the dragon phoenix essence spirit. The power of extreme yin of the nether glow stone fused with the green lotus essence spirit. Initially, the two essence spirits were in an intense conflict and refused to give in to one another. However, due to the fusion of the powers of extreme yin and yang, they gradually stopped. The two essence spirits seemed to have transformed into yin-yang fishes that spun slowly in Su Zimo's consciousness, chasing one another. An extremely terrifying spirit consciousness fluctuation emanated from the bronze square tripod. If King Yunyu and the others could notice this, they would definitely be shocked. That spirit consciousness fluctuation should not have been released by a cultivator who had just ascended after tribulation transcendence. The pain in Su Zimo's mind lessened significantly. However, the danger before him was not resolved yet. That was because Su Zimo knew very well that the two powers of extreme yin and yang were in balance right now. However, as the two powers rose, the conflict between the yin-yang fishes would become more intense and they might even bite one another. At that time, the two essence spirits would also be destroyed by the pursuit of the power of yin and yang. What should I do? Su Zimo was anxious. He was helpless against that scene. Right now, the situation in his consciousness was completely out of his control. Boom! Boom! Suddenly, a loud bang sounded from outside the bronze square tripod. The two experts attacked and released a shocking collision. The power was so terrifying that it even pierced a part of the starry skies near the bronze square tripod. Cracks appeared around the pierced starry skies. Immediately after, the starry skies began to collapse and a cave appeared. It grew deeper and deeper and was pitch black, as though it wanted to devour all living beings. Black hole! King Yunyu exclaimed, as though he was extremely wary of the black hole. The starry skies could not withstand the attack of two experts and a change happened. As for the black hole, it was extremely terrifying. Even light would be devoured by it, let alone living beings of the 10,000 races. Even King Yunyu did not dare to enter. Chapter 1787, Words in the Tripod. Chapter 1787, Words in the Tripod. Before Su Zimo could escape from danger within the bronze square tripod, he felt a tremendous suction force acting on it. He had no choice but to fall into the endless abyss. Immediately after, Su Zimo heard King Yunyu's exclamation about the black hole. Black hole? What was that? In Su Zimo's consciousness, his two essence spirits contained the power of extreme yin and yang as they spun slowly. His aura rose continuously and turned increasingly berserk, showing signs of collapse. Su Zimo could no longer think about anything else. His consciousness was in chaos. If not for the fact that the creation lotus platform was beneath and spewed out streams of green light that surged into the two essence spirits, his soul would have long dissipated. He was faced with troubles both internally and externally. The black hole was a scene that could only be formed in the starry skies of the upper world after many changes. It could devour all living beings and even immortal kings would not dare to step foot into it. When he saw the bronze square tripod sucked into the black hole in the starry skies, King Yunyu was shocked and furious with a livid expression. He was about to obtain the creation green lotus, but it was sucked into the black hole. Even though he had torrential combat strength, he was helpless at the moment. Swoosh! Right then, a streak of silver light burst forth from one end of the starry skies like a bolt of lightning and entered the black hole instantly. It was a horsetail whip. As though it was sentient, the silver threads on the horsetail whip were extremely extraordinary. They charged into the black hole in the starry sky and reached towards the bronze square tripod, wanting to sweep it out. The person who attacked was not King Yunyu, but the other person. Prior to this person did not attack when King Yunyu fought the mysterious woman. However, at that moment, when he saw that the creation green lotus was about to be devoured by the black hole, he finally could not hold it in and summoned a dermic treasure. However, the silver threads on the horsetail whip dimmed the moment they entered the black hole. By the time the silver threads arrived above the bronze square tripod, they were already at the end of the road and were torn apart by the power of the black hole. In the blink of an eye, the silver threads turned into dust. In that short period of time, the bronze square tripod had already disappeared into the depths of the black hole. Sigh. When the mysterious woman saw that, she sighed and retreated. King Yunyu's face was filled with killing intent. Just as he was about to chase after her, a voice sounded from the side, "Don't go. Although your combat strength is stronger than hers, you won't be able to catch up to her." Who was that woman? King Yunyu's expression darkened. That woman seems to be shrouded by a fog and her appearance can't be seen clearly. Can you tell who she is? On the other end of the starry skies, a figure appeared faintly with a bare horsetail whip in his hands. It was the person who wanted to retrieve the bronze square tripod earlier on. I can't tell. The person said, however, there should be very few kings in the heavenly world who can possess such methods. Damn it. King Yunyu had an indignant expression and said hatefully, I came in a group just to only destroy a clone of this lad? The person seemed a little indignant as well and harumphed coldly. Not only did I gain nothing by coming with you, I even lost a grotto heaven dermic treasure. My horsetail whip has been nurtured for hundreds of thousands of years. To think that it would be destroyed in this black hole today. Suddenly, King Yunyu said, however, both of us were wrong. That battered bronze tripod is a rare treasure. That's right. The person nodded slightly. My horsetail whip was torn by the black hole in the starry skies. However, although that bronze tripod was filled with cracks, it was not completely shattered. It's clear that it has a powerful background. However, it's meaningless to talk about that now. There's no way to retrieve the bronze tripod that fell into the black hole of the starry skies. With that said, the figure gradually faded and disappeared into the depths of the starry skies. King Yunyu stood on the spot and looked at the black hole not far away. After standing for a long time, although he was indignant, he could only leave helplessly. There was no time or light in the black hole. The space within was distorted and anything that fell into it would be torn into pieces by the power of the black hole. Even if there were any utmost treasures that could defend against the power of the black hole, there was no way they could leave this place. The black hole was like an endless dark ocean. At that moment, a battered bronze square tripod floated in the ocean. Under normal circumstances, there should be no light in a black hole filled with darkness. But now, the bronze square tripod was emitting a faint glow. Furthermore, as time passed by, the light emitted by the bronze square tripod intensified. A strange change was happening within the bronze square tripod. When the silver threads of the horsetail whip were shredded by the black hole and turned into silver dust, they should have scattered into the black hole. However, the strange thing was that a powerful suction force burst forth from the bronze square tripod and sucked all the silver dust over. The silver dust passed through the 9 heavens living soil and fell into the bronze square tripod. Although Su Zimo's consciousness was in a mess, he could still sense that scene. Immediately after, he could sense that the bronze square tripod was boiling. Although the heat did not hurt Su Zimo, it smelted all the silver dust and emanated an extremely powerful aura. While the silver dust was shattered, it was a grotto heaven dermic treasure. Be it its material or the power it contained, it was extremely shocking. At that moment, the bronze square tripod began to absorb the power of the silver dust on its own after smelting it. The bronze square tripod was like a starving person, gulping in huge mouthfuls. There were 4 sides to the bronze square tripod. In the process, the crack on the inner walls of the bronze square tripod healed bit by bit. Initially, after the baptism of the heavenly tribulation and absorbing the heaven and earth essence chi, the bronze square tripod had already undergone some changes. It had already reacted by emitting a faint glow. However, the tripod was still battered and showed no signs of recovery. But now, the bronze square tripod was recovering on its own after devouring and refining the silver dust. Su Zimo was delighted when he noticed that. Right then, another violent impact sounded in his mind. As though he was struck by lightning, Su Zimo's face turned pale and he nearly fainted. In his consciousness, the chase between the 2 essence spirits intensified and he could no longer withstand it. If he could not think of a solution, his 2 essence spirits would collapse completely and his soul would dissipate. Ah! 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 Su Zimo clenched his fists and growled with a pained expression. Suddenly, a golden light seemed to flash before Su Zimo's eyes. He looked over with widened eyes. As the cracks on one side of the bronze square tripod healed, lines of words appeared on one of the inner walls, shimmering with a faint golden light. Chapter 1788, Prajna Nirvana Sutra. Chapter 1788, Prajna Nirvana Sutra. The golden words were extremely strange and did not belong to Tianhuang mainland. Instead, they were ancient Sanskrit of the Buddhist monasteries. If it was anyone else, they would not be able to recognize a single word of the Sanskrit. However, Su Zimo was well versed in Buddhism. When he was a mortal, Dayu placed the Saraka flower in his body and turned it into his wisdom root. As such, he had a deep understanding of the Sanskrit of Buddhism. Enduring the pain in his mind, Su Zimo was on the brink of a mental breakdown and instinctively read out the first 5 words on the inner wall of the bronze square tripod. Prajna 1. Nirvana Sutra. Boom! A loud bang sounded in Su Zimo's mind. The 2 essence spirits that were fused with the power of extreme yin and yang were initially in a frenzied chase and collision that intensified. However, the moment Su Zimo released the Sanskrit words, the 2 essence spirits paused for a moment. The power of extreme yin and yang seemed to have mellowed and was no longer as sharp as before. Su Zimo regained a momentary respite of clarity and vaguely realized that the golden Sanskrit words on the inner walls of the bronze square tripod were most likely the key to resolving the danger in his body. Prajna represented wisdom in Buddhism. The nirvana of Buddhism was completely different from the nirvana of the phoenix race. In Buddhism, nirvana represented the entire process of a monk's enlightenment. By cutting off the attachment to time, he could reach a supreme realm where he could transcend mortality and attain enlightenment. Su Zimo widened his eyes and continued reading the golden Sanskrit words on the inner wall. With that look, Su Zimo felt that the Sanskrit was extremely mysterious, as though it contained the deepest essence of the Buddhist Tao. Every single golden Sanskrit word contained endless wisdom after careful analysis. Given Su Zimo's current attainments in Buddhism, it was difficult for him to comprehend those Sanskrit words in a short period of time. In Tianhuang mainland, one of the 6 Buddhist monasteries was Wisdom One Monastery. Su Zimo had cultivated the Prajna Sutra, an important secret classic of the Buddhist monasteries in Wisdom Monastery. However, the profoundness of the Prajna Sutra paled in comparison to the Prajna Nirvana Sutra before him. Ah! Right then, in Su Zimo's mind, the 2 essence spirits collided once more. His body shuddered and he could not help but cry out in pain. If this continued, his head would explode and his 2 essence spirits would be destroyed within a few breaths. Su Zimo composed himself hurriedly and focused his gaze, chanting the Sanskrit words on the inner walls of the bronze square tripod one after another. A series of ancient Sanskrit sounds reverberated through the almost sealed bronze square tripod. It was divine and boundless. Su Zimo's eyes shone with a bedazzling golden light. He seemed to have an illusion that the golden Sanskrit words on the inner walls of the bronze square tripod were falling one after another and swarming into his consciousness. A divine and peaceful power descended on the two essence spirits that were in pursuit. Under the augmentation of that power, the two essence spirits gradually calmed down. The two essence spirits that were fused with the power of extreme yin and yang seemed to have transformed into two different fish, black and white. Their heads and tails were connected as they gradually closed in. Initially, the power of the yin-yang fishes was fiercely at odds and could not fuse together. However, at that moment, a golden thread appeared between the yin-yang fishes, forming a perfect arc that fused the two powers. That golden thread was formed from the power of the Prajna Nirvana Sutra. Under the connection of the golden thread, the yin-yang fishes fused almost perfectly and spun slowly while their auras gradually stabilized. Su Zimo panted heavily, drenched from head to toe. However, his eyes shone with the joy of surviving a calamity. Even after absorbing the weapon of the immortal king expert, only a single wall of the bronze square tripod was repaired. However, the Prajna Nirvana Sutra recorded on the wall of the tripod was incomplete and could only be considered as one of the volumes. If those Sanskrit words could not suppress the extreme yin and yang as well as his two essence spirits, he would be helpless. At that moment, the black and white yin-yang fishes spun slowly on the creation lotus platform, absorbing the green glow that spewed from it and emitting a powerful aura. As time passed by, the yin-yang fishes gradually transformed and condensed another essence spirit. It looked exactly like Su Zimo. Success! Su Zimo was delighted. The two essence spirits fused successfully. Not only that, Su Zimo could clearly sense that the brand new essence spirit was much stronger than his current cultivation realm. What surprised Su Zimo even more was that his essence spirit was not only nourished by the creation lotus platform. The two illumination and nether glow stones that had fused into his eyes were also emitting wisps of power that were nourishing his essence spirit. That way, the potential of the green lotus essence spirit would be limitless and there would be a greater chance for it to grow to grade 10, 11, or even the legendary grade 12. Dai Yu had once said that the later 4 grades of the creation green lotus contained great opportunities. Now that Su Zimo's green lotus true body had transformed to grade 9, that statement had come true. He obtained an utmost treasure, the 9 heavens living soil. He did not know what sort of opportunities would be born in the later 3 grades. This time round, Su Zimo had no other choice than to fuse his essence spirits. This was the only way he could minimize the loss of this calamity. Notwithstanding the huge increase in his essence spirit realm after the essence spirit fusion, by some freak coincidence, he even activated the bronze square tripod completely and obtained an ancient Buddhist sutra from it. It was clear that this Buddhist sutra had an extremely powerful effect on cultivating one's essence spirit. If that was not the case, he would not have been able to fuse his two essence spirits through the intersection of yin and yang. More importantly, the reverse scale and Baron's secret skills in the dragon phoenix essence spirit were not lost and were completely fused with the green lotus true body. After fusing with his essence spirit, the combat strength of the green lotus true body increased significantly as well. For his ascension to the upper world, this was way too important. He had already encountered such a calamity before he ascended to the upper world. It was hard to imagine the danger he would face once he truly arrived. Of course, the fusion of the two essence spirits was not without losses. At the very least, the current green lotus true body could no longer release the nirvana divine power of the phoenix race. Apart from comprehension, the most important thing to activate this innate divine power was to possess the blood of the divine phoenix. The dragon phoenix true body had phoenix blood flowing through his body, but the green lotus true body did not. For Su Zimo, that loss was nothing much. Even if he could activate that divine power, he would not dare to. That was because the nirvana divine power had a slim chance of survival to begin with. Relying on that divine power would not be of much benefit to his cultivation. King Yunyu. Once I ascend to the upper world, I'll definitely take revenge. In the bronze square tripod, Su Zimo could not help but say word by word with a cold expression and killing intent when he thought of the destroyed dragon phoenix true body. Su Zimo did not know that although his essence spirit was temporarily out of danger, he was not out of the woods just yet. Now that he was devoured by the black hole in the starry skies, he was in a space without light, time and essence chi. He could not leave at all, let alone ascend to the upper world. If nothing unexpected happened, he would have to float in the black hole forever until his lifespan was up. The Eternal Divine Emperor. Chapter 1789, Hell Suppression Tripod. Chapter 1789, Hell Suppression Tripod. Tianhuang Mainland, North Region, Pingyang Town. The martial Tao Prime Body stood in the courtyard and looked at the firmaments. His gaze was cold and he was filled with a chilling killing intent. The atmosphere in the courtyard turned extremely tense. Tao Yao frowned slightly at the side, worried. He had accompanied the martial Tao Prime Body for many years but had never seen the latter reveal such a gaze and emit such a terrifying aura. Even in the battle against the primordial races and blood fiend back then, the martial Tao Prime Body remained calm. But now, something major must have happened for the martial Tao Prime Body to reveal such a gaze. Young master, did something happen? Tao Yao could not help but ask. The martial Tao Prime Body was silent and shook his head gently without explaining. Although he could not see the situation in the starry skies, he could still sense the calamity that the Dragon Phoenix True Body encountered clearly. A moment later, the martial Tao Prime Body appeared in the depths of the firmaments in a flash. Outside Tianhuang Mainland, a gigantic ball of flames was descending. It was filled with blood chi and had a terrifying might. The gigantic ball of flames was the Dragon Phoenix True Body that was destroyed by King Yunyu. Although the life force of the Dragon Phoenix True Body was destroyed by King Yunyu, the bloodline that flowed through his body still possessed immense power. The martial Tao Prime Body extended his palm and condensed a space to receive the Dragon Phoenix True Body. Immediately after, he tore through the void and returned to Pingyang Town. What is this? Tao Yao asked in surprise when he saw the martial Tao Prime Body return with a battered item soaked in blood. The Dragon Phoenix True Body's life force had long been shattered by King Yunyu's palm and was in an unrecognizable state, even his skeleton could not be seen. This is the Dragon Phoenix True Body that I cultivated. It was destroyed by someone. The martial Tao Prime Body said slowly. Ah! Tao Yao exclaimed in shock. What about your Green Lotus True Body? Is it alright? Tao Yao was smart and immediately recognized that Su Zimo's two true bodies must have encountered a calamity after they ascended to the upper world. I don't know. The martial Tao Prime Body shook his head. When he caught the Dragon Phoenix True Body earlier on, there was still a faint connection between him and the Green Lotus True Body. However, right now, the martial Tao Prime Body could no longer sense the existence of the Green Lotus True Body. That was because at that moment, the Green Lotus True Body was devoured by the black hole along with the bronze square tripod and was completely isolated from the outside world. The martial Tao Prime Body took a deep breath and regained his composure. No matter what happened to the Green Lotus True Body, the only thing he could do right now was to wait patiently and continue cultivating. Thankfully, for some reason, the martial Tao Prime Body did not choose to ascend and stayed on Tianhuang Mainland. Otherwise, the martial Tao Prime Body would have been doomed as well. The martial Tao Prime Body pondered for a moment and his spirit consciousness moved, retrieving Heavenly Wolf that was burned by the three flames from his storage bag. After the martial Tao Prime Body comprehended the tribulation fire, he combined it with the martial spirit fire and red lotus karmic fire to burn Heavenly Wolf. This was the drop of blood in the silver mask. What's the origin of that bronze tripod and what treasure is it? The martial Tao Prime Body asked. I don't know. Heavenly Wolf shouted in pain, I already lost my memories when I woke up. I only know that it's called the Hell Suppression Tripod. Apart from that, I've forgotten everything. It's useless even if you burn me. The martial Tao Prime Body sneered. It was clear that Heavenly Wolf was dishonest. If what he said was true and he had already lost his memories, why would he impart the Three Corpses technique to Tao Lord Blood Fiend? The Three Corpses technique was a top-tier cloning technique of the Fiend sections. If Heavenly Wolf could remember such a secret skill clearly, how could he forget the origin of the bronze square tripod? The martial Tao prime body had a cold gaze and glared at Heavenly Wolf in the flaming prison in silence. Although Heavenly Wolf jumped and shrieked repeatedly from the three flames, he could still hold it in and refuse to say anything. The three flames could only threaten Heavenly Wolf. They were not enough to refine the latter completely. The martial Tao prime body ignored him and threw him into his storage bag. Tao Yao, I'm prepared to enter seclusion. I'll leave this place to you. The martial Tao prime body turned and said softly to Tao Yao. Don't worry, young master. I'll definitely protect Pingyang Town and you. Tao Yao said hurriedly with worry in his eyes. After a brief pause, he asked, Young master, are you all right? Tao Yao knew the origin of the Dragon Phoenix true body and knew what this body meant to Su Zimo. That was the reason why he was worried that Su Zimo would not be able to withstand the blow. If he were to cultivate in seclusion under such circumstances, it would be extremely easy for him to develop mental demons or even go berserk. I'm fine. The martial Tao prime body smiled faintly. Although the Dragon Phoenix true body was destroyed, it was not gone. In this seclusion, the martial Tao prime body was prepared to fuse the Dragon Phoenix true body into this body. It might be extremely difficult for the Green Lotus true body to fuse with the Dragon Phoenix true body. However, it was relatively simple for the martial Tao prime body to smelt the Dragon Phoenix true body. The martial Tao prime body brought the Dragon Phoenix true body back to the cultivation field set up by Dai Yu and channeled his blood chi slowly. In the blink of an eye, the martial Tao prime body vanished. In his place was a gigantic furnace burning with raging flames. There were 3 types of flames burning around the furnace alone. The body of the martial Tao prime body was like a gigantic furnace that could smelt 100 sutras, divine powers and even flesh. The martial Tao prime body threw the Dragon Phoenix true body into the furnace and began refining. If he could refine the Dragon Phoenix true body completely, the martial Tao prime body might be able to master another flame. The black hole. Su Zimo had been floating here for a long time, curled up in the bronze square tripod as he frowned with a pale expression. Although he could hide in the bronze square tripod and not be devoured by the power of the black hole, he could not sense the passage of time here. There was no sound in the surroundings. A maddening sense of loneliness surged into his heart. His surroundings were dark, as though he was the only one left in the darkness, wandering aimlessly without an end. The bronze square tripod could only isolate physical power. However, the invisible power within the black hole was affecting Su Zimo at all times. Initially, Su Zimo could still calm down and comprehend the Prajna Nirvana Sutra. However, as time passed by, he felt increasingly frustrated. To be precise, he did not know how much time had passed. A month? A year? 10 years? If he could sense the passage of time, Su Zimo would feel much better. However, the emptiness, loneliness and helplessness tortured him constantly. This was even more terrifying than any other power. He could only wait alone in this cramped space. His connection with the martial Tao prime body had been completely severed. Su Zimo shouted from the bronze square tripod, but there was no response, leaving only his echo that gradually weakened in the tripod. His spirit consciousness tried to probe the outside world through the 9 heavens living soil. However, his spirit consciousness was devoured by the power of the black hole the moment it left the bronze square tripod. Just like that, he floated. After a long time, Su Zimo's spirit was almost at the brink of collapse. Actually, Su Zimo was within the bronze square tripod and could not see what was happening outside. The black hole wasn't completely devoid of light. The outer wall of the bronze square tripod was the only light in the black hole. Chapter 1790, Awakening of the Divine Dragon. Chapter 1790, Awakening of the Divine Dragon. If there were other living beings in the black hole, they would definitely be able to discover the shimmering bronze square tripod. 3 sides of the bronze square tripod were shattered, but the cracks on one of the tripod walls had already healed. A divine dragon carving that spiraled up appeared on the repaired wall of the tripod. It was lifelike and emitted a powerful might. The divine dragon etched on the walls of the tripod faced the vast world with its head and eyes closed. Suddenly, the divine dragon seemed to have come alive and its eyes suddenly opened. Its gaze was deep and exuded an unparalleled aura of indifference towards all living beings. Roar! A majestic dragon roar sounded, piercing through metal and cracking rocks. The divine dragon crawled out slowly from the wall of the tripod. It was covered in green scales that shone with a cold glint, and its claws were sharp, as though they could penetrate everything. The divine dragon on the bronze square tripod had truly come alive. It looked around and seemed to have realized where it was. Its gigantic tail coiled around the bronze square tripod and it flew in a direction. Dragon roar? In the bronze square tripod, Su Zimo murmured with a lost expression, "Am I imagining things?" Immediately after, Su Zimo felt his body slam heavily against the inner wall, as though he was moving rapidly in a certain direction. It had been a long time since he felt that way. In the black hole, Su Zimo could not sense the passage of time, direction, or even whether he was moving. But now, all those senses had returned to him. He could not believe it. After a long time, Su Zimo suddenly felt his body lighten. Although he was still in the relatively cramped bronze square tripod, he no longer had the maddening feeling of emptiness and annihilation. A long-awaited aura seeped into the bronze square tripod through the 9 heavens living soil. It seemed to be heaven and earth essence chi. Immediately after, Su Zimo sensed the passage of time. Could I have already left the black hole? Su Zimo's eyes widened in shock. By the time the green divine dragon carried the bronze square tripod and charged out of the black hole, its power seemed to have been exhausted and it dimmed. After floating in the black hole for so long, the divine dragon escaped with the bronze square tripod and had long deviated from the location where King Yunyu attacked. The surroundings were vast starry skies with some stars floating. On the other side of the stars was a gigantic shadow that seemed endless. The divine dragon sensed for a moment and swept up the bronze square tripod, descending towards a star around the shadow. Initially, the speed of the bronze square tripod's descent was still under control. The light emitted by the divine dragon dimmed and eventually turned into a green streak of light, returning to the intact wall of the bronze square tripod. The bronze square tripod was falling out of control and was getting faster. In the bronze square tripod, Su Zimo suddenly realized that something was amiss. He hurriedly put away the 9 heavens living soil and released his spirit consciousness, wanting to check out the situation outside. At that moment, the surroundings were already burning with flames because the bronze square tripod was falling too quickly. Su Zimo had wandered in the black hole for a long time before escaping, and his reaction was still a little slow. He was alarmed and wanted to control the speed of the bronze square tripod, but it was too late. Boom! There was a loud bang. The bronze square tripod had already landed heavily on the star, creating a huge pit as dust billowed. Although Su Zimo was in the bronze square tripod, he suffered a huge impact and was sent flying. He rolled dozens of feet on the ground before stopping. This time round, Su Zimo was severely injured. His head was spinning and his tendons and bones felt like they were about to split. Of course, compared to King Yunyu's attack and the dread in the black hole, this injury was nothing to him. The most important thing was that he had survived. He escaped from King Yunyu's pursuit and the black hole. Although the pain on his body was unbearable and he was covered in mud, Su Zimo was delighted and relieved. Right then, a racket sounded from afar, as though many people had heard the commotion and were rushing over. Su Zimo could not help but laugh. He had floated in the black hole for a long time without any sound or life. Although he did not know if these people were friends or foes, nor did he know what sort of existences they were, those voices sounded incomparably warm to Su Zimo at the moment. What happened? Why is there such a huge commotion? I saw a ball of flames descending from the sky earlier on. It should be a meteor. From the direction, it seems to be the spirit field under Duan Tianliang's jurisdiction. Immediately after, Su Zimo heard chaotic footsteps approaching from afar. Pust. Impressive. Someone gasped. The huge pit created by the meteor destroyed more than 10 mu1 of the spirit field. 1,000 essence-nourishing grass and rain frost flowers have all been destroyed. This is a natural disaster. There's no one to blame. Duan Tianliang is probably going to cry to death, someone gloated. Keep your voice down, don't let him hear you. That fatty is extremely petty and might come after us to vent his anger upon knowing about this. Su Zimo had yet to recover from the heavy fall. He sprawled on the ground and recuperated in silence to recover from his injuries. Given the regeneration capabilities of the Green Lotus True Body, such injuries could be healed in less than half an hour. Although it was thin, Su Zimo could sense the heaven and earth essence chi around him. If he was not wrong, this should be the upper world. There was a trichiliocosm in the upper world and he did not know which world he had fallen into. He was extremely unfamiliar with the essence-nourishing grass and rain frost flower that the people not far away were talking about and had never seen them in the ancient books of Tianhuang mainland. Right then, someone exclaimed softly, "This doesn't seem like a meteor falling. There seems to be a bronze tripod beneath that pit." Indeed. Many people approached and some of them could not hold back their curiosity and jumped into the pit to pick up the bronze tripod. Ha! The person exhaled and said. After lifting the bronze tripod, he placed it down heavily. This sure is heavy. I wonder what grade of dermic treasure this bronze tripod is. It's useless no matter what dermic treasure it is. It's already useless given how shattered it is. The person threw the bronze tripod at his feet without taking another look. Everyone subconsciously thought that the bronze tripod was shattered because it fell from the skies and struck the ground. Su Zimo chuckled internally. Although one of the walls of the bronze square tripod was repaired, the other 3 walls were still battered. Even an expert like King Yunyu was wrong, let alone these people. Why is there a ravine dozens of feet long over there? Someone pointed to the edge of the pit and frowned. Everyone looked in the direction of the ravine. There seems to be someone over there. This ravine was created by this person on the ground? Hurry and take a look. There's no need to look. If the spirit field beneath our feet is already in such a state, how can any body of flesh and blood withstand it? They must have died a long time ago. Chapter 1791, Grade 1 Black Immortal. Chapter 1791, Grade 1 Black Immortal. As everyone discussed, the figure at the end of the ravine moved. Immediately after, right in front of everyone, the figure crawled up from the mud bit by bit. He's not dead? Everyone was shocked. The person looked like he had fallen badly. His clothes were torn and his face was filled with blood and mud. His original appearance could not be seen clearly. Only his eyes were bright and clear. Su Zimo looked wretched and extremely miserable. However, in that short period of time, his injuries were mostly healed. The wounds on his body had long recovered and stopped bleeding. He's a Grade 1 Black Immortal. Yes, I reckon that he must have just ascended from the lower world. However, I don't know why he fell from the skies and landed in our snow-wind ridge. Su Zimo could clearly sense the people before him scanning him with their spirit consciousnesses. Daiyu once told him that after ascending to the upper world, he would have to face 3 major realms, the Black Essence, Earth Essence and Heaven Essence realms. Each major cultivation realm had 9 levels. Immortal cultivators of the Black Essence realm were called Black Immortals. The Grade 1 Black Immortal they were referring to was most likely cultivators at level 1 of the Black Essence realm. Just a Grade 1 Black Immortal? Su Zimo frowned slightly. To think that even after ascending through the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation in the lower world, he was only a grade 1 black immortal in the upper world. Su Zimo released his spirit consciousness as well and scanned the dozens of people before him. He could also clearly sense that most of the dozens of people before him were at grade 1 black immortal realm. However, the two people leading them were grade 2 black immortals. Although he was facing grade 2 black immortals, Su Zimo had a feeling that the power within his body could crush them with ease. It was not because of the grade 9 green lotus true body or any secret skills or divine powers. It was a sensation that felt like a suppression of cultivation realms. Su Zimo had just ascended to the upper world and was unfamiliar with everything. He merely felt that something was amiss. He felt the ground beneath his feet and breathed in the air around him, trying his best to sense, adapt and familiarize himself with it. Everything here was vastly different from Tianhuang mainland. Under normal circumstances, given the strength of the grade 9 green lotus true body's flesh, he would be perfectly fine even if he fell from the skies onto Tianhuang mainland. But now that Su Zimo was injured after falling, it was mainly because the gravity here was dozens of times stronger than in Tianhuang mainland. If an ordinary person were to arrive here without tribulation transcendence and their flesh was infused with heaven and earth essence chi, they would explode on the spot and die from the gravity. Furthermore, Su Zimo had just stomped on the ground gently and he could clearly feel that the ground beneath his feet was even firmer. Even when the bronze square tripod descended from the skies, it merely created a huge pit on the ground. If that power were to smash into Tianhuang mainland, a gigantic valley would be formed. What's going on? Make way. A fat, round-faced fatty ran over from outside with an ugly expression and an aggressive aura. Fatty Duan is here. Hurry and dodge. Heh, that lad is going to suffer for destroying more than 10 mu of the spirit field. Someone shook his head gently and whispered, Duan Tianliang is narrow-minded and heartless. He won't let this person off easily. Although they lowered their voices, Su Zimo's hearing was strong and he heard everything clearly. When Duan Tianliang approached and saw the huge pit in the spirit field not far away with cracks spreading everywhere, his round face darkened completely. Duan Tianliang shifted his gaze towards Su Zimo and asked coldly, You did this? Yes. Su Zimo nodded. I've only just arrived and destroyed your spirit field by accident. Do advise me on how I should compensate you. Su Zimo was polite not because he wanted to show weakness. Only, he was indeed in the wrong for this matter. Furthermore, he had just ascended to the upper world and everything around him was unknown. It was better to be careful. Foo-foo. When they heard Su Zimo's words, everyone laughed and shook their heads. Duan Tianliang's expression turned even uglier as he grit his teeth. Humph, more than 10 mu of my spirit field was destroyed just like that. The life of a grade 1 black immortal like you isn't even worth the thousands of spirit herbs in this spirit field. Su Zimo narrowed his gaze in silence. What's going on? Right then, a gentle voice sounded. Su Zimo glanced sideways and saw 6 people walking over not far away. Their leader was a young woman wearing a snow-white cloak. The woman was extremely beautiful and elegant. She had an oval face and her beautiful eyes were clear. She wore light makeup and her black hair cascaded down her shoulders like a waterfall. The woman no longer had an ethereal immortal aura. Instead, she had a pugilistic aura that made one feel closer to her. Su Zimo's spirit consciousness swept past the woman. The woman's cultivation realm clearly surpassed Duan Tianliang's. Su Zimo's initial guess was that this woman was most likely a grade 4 black immortal. The woman seemed to have a high status and was followed by 5 black immortals who looked like guards. One of the men wore battle armor and followed closely behind the woman with a cold expression. His cultivation realm was similar to hers. The remaining 4 guards followed behind the man. Their cultivation realms were also lower than the man. The mistress is here. A soft exclamation sounded from the crowd in front of the spirit field. Greetings, mistress. Immediately after, everyone in the spirit field cupped their fists towards the young woman. The woman smiled gently with a warm expression and returned the greeting with cupped fists. Thank you for your hard work, everyone. Greetings, Commander Liang. Everyone bowed to the cold man behind the woman. The cold man raised his head slightly with a haughty expression and merely grunted in response. When Duan Tianliang saw the two of them, he jogged over hurriedly as well. The gloominess on his face earlier on had vanished completely, leaving only grievance and indignance as he wailed loudly. Mistress, you have to uphold justice for me. For dozens of years, I've worked hard and diligently to manage this spirit field, not daring to slack off at all. At that point, many people pouted their lips. Duan Tianliang continued, just as the essence-nourishing grass and rain frost flower were about to ripen, this person destroyed more than 10 mu of the spirit field. 1,000 stalks of essence-nourishing grass and rain frost flower were gone. Mistress, it's not my fault. It's all his fault. Right from the beginning, Su Zimo did not speak or argue. He merely stood there quietly. The young woman looked at Su Zimo with a hint of surprise in her eyes that disappeared quickly. Commander Liang glanced at Su Zimo and could not help but feel disgusted when he saw the latter covered in blood and mud. He retracted his gaze and refused to look further. Chapter 1792, Medicinal Farm. Chapter 1792, Medicinal Farm. Who are you? Where did you ascend from? The young woman looked at Su Zimo and asked with a bright gaze. I'm Su Zimo from the Pingyang mainland of the lower world. Su Zimo's words were half true. There was nothing to hide about his name. Even if he said it, it would not attract much attention. Although King Yunyu was his great enemy, the former did not know his name. However, he had just arrived in the upper world and everything around him was unknown. Out of caution, Su Zimo hid Tianhuang mainland and changed it to the name of his hometown, Pingyang Town. There were 1 billion minor kiliocosms in the lower world. Even if he made things up, the woman before him would not be able to discover any flaws. Why did you descend from the skies and land here? The young woman asked again. Su Zimo said, when I ascended, something unexpected happened. I wonder where this is. I heard that the upper world is vast and boundless with a trichiliocosm. Which world of the upper world is this? Su Zimo merely mentioned his experience of ascending casually before changing the topic and taking the initiative to ask. When everyone saw Su Zimo like this, they laughed. They had experienced this before as well. Back when they ascended here, everything in the upper world was unknown and new to them. Commander Liang smirked in disdain. The young woman did not show anything. This is the Dragon Abyss Star, a star under the jurisdiction of Green Cloud County. The land beneath your feet belongs to the territory of Snow Wind Ridge. Dragon Abyss Star? Green Cloud County? Snow Wind Ridge? Su Zimo was dazed. A single star was under the jurisdiction of a county? How big was Green Cloud County? As for which world of the upper world this is, I don't know either. The young woman hesitated for a moment. That's because I've never left the Dragon Abyss Star. Stunned, Su Zimo looked around instinctively. The others had calm expressions as well. It was clear that they had no doubts about the young woman's words. In other words, none of them knew which world of the upper world this was and had never left the Dragon Abyss Star. Why don't you leave? Su Zimo asked. Humph. Ignorant person. When he heard that, Commander Liang sneered, notwithstanding the Dragon Abyss Star, you'll be considered capable if you can survive beyond 5,000 kilometers of Snow Wind Ridge in this lifetime of yours. Initially, Duan Tianliang did not dare to interrupt and the young woman was conversing with Su Zimo. He was observant and jumped out hurriedly when he heard Commander Liang's mockery. Pointing at Su Zimo, he hollered, "What kind of a country bumpkin from Pingyang mainland are you? Are you laughing at your mistress? You're just asking for a beating." Duan Tianliang turned around and cupped his fists towards the young woman. "Mistress, don't worry. Leave this person to me. I guarantee that I'll tidy him up obediently." Someone at the side could not take it lying down and tried to smooth things over. He just ascended and doesn't know the situation. It's not his fault. Fellow brother, let me tell you. I've ascended for tens of thousands of years and have never left the Dragon Abyss Star before as well. That's right. It's meaningless even if you know which world this is. It's already not bad if we get the chance to visit Dragon Abyss City in this lifetime. Everyone said. Su Zimo was shocked and his heart suffered a huge blow. Those who could ascend were all paragons and monster incarnates of the lower worlds. However, even after ascending for tens of thousands of years, none of them could leave the Dragon Abyss Star. It was only now that Su Zimo truly experienced the vastness and mysteriousness of the upper world. Mistress, there's no need to explain so much to this person. Just leave him to the medicinal farmers. Commander Liang said softly. The young woman nodded slightly and looked at Su Zimo. No matter what, you have to compensate for destroying this spirit field. According to the rules of Snow Wind Ridge, all Grade 1 Black Immortals have to start from being a medicinal farmer. The two types of immortal herbs planted are the essence-nourishing grass and rain frost flower. Under normal circumstances, every medicinal farmer has to farm 10 mu of land. Since you destroyed 13 mu of land, we'll leave the medicinal herbs planted here to you. You can only leave Snow Wind Ridge after these two immortal herbs ripen. Of course, you can also choose to stay. In Snow Wind Ridge, everyone is treated equally. If you can cultivate to become a Grade 2 Black Immortal, you can be a steward in Snow Wind Ridge and manage the medicinal farmers. At that point, Su Zimo looked at Duan Tianliang, who was not far away. The young woman smiled. You're not wrong. Duan Tianliang is one of the stewards of Snow Wind Ridge. If you have any doubts, you can ask him. Mistress, don't worry. Duan Tianliang patted himself on the chest. Leave this person to me. The young woman frowned slightly. He has just ascended and is severely injured. Let him rest and recuperate for a period of time first. There's no need to worry about farming. Why yes. Duan Tianliang nodded hurriedly in agreement, but he sneered internally, Rascal, you've destroyed more than 10 mu of my spirit field. Watch how I torture you. The young woman cupped her fists towards everyone and bid farewell. Before long, the young woman who was about to leave turned back as though she recalled something. She came before Su Zimo and took out a jade bottle and a talisman from her storage bag. Handing it over, she said softly, there are some spirit herbs in this jade bottle that might be of some help to your injuries. In the lower world, dust removal is merely a minor dermic art. However, in the upper world, the dust removal art is an immortal art. Since you haven't cultivated it yet, take this dust removal talisman first. Go back and clean the mud on your body and recuperate well. Su Zimo's expression changed slightly. Although it was nothing much, he felt a sense of warmth in his heart. He had just ascended and did not know the woman before him. Even in the cultivation world of Tianhuang mainland, it was extremely rare for a woman as such who would be friendly to a stranger. Fellow brother, accept it. Our mistress is a very nice person. A honest middle-aged man at the side said with a smile. Don't just stand there, take it. When the young woman saw that Su Zimo was still motionless, she took the initiative to pull Su Zimo's mud-covered palm and placed the bottle and dust removal talisman on it. The young woman's actions were very natural and carefree without the restraints of etiquette. More importantly, even though Su Zimo was dirty right now, she did not disdain him at all. Initially, Su Zimo was hesitant about whether he should stay in Snow Wind Ridge. Given his capabilities, Duan Tianliang would definitely not be able to stop him if he wanted to leave. It was only at this moment that he decided to stay in Snow Wind Ridge for the time being and familiarize himself with the Dragon Abyss Star before making further plans. At that thought, Su Zimo suddenly laughed self-deprecatingly. He had once thought that ascending to the upper world would definitely be extremely dangerous and every single step would be filled with danger. It would be inevitable for him to fight in all directions and be drenched in blood. He would have to clash against countless paragons. He would have to compete against all the experts of the upper world. However, he had never expected that he would become a farmer upon ascension to the upper world. Chapter 1793, Xie Qingying. Chapter 1793, Xie Qingying. Su Zimo looked at the bottle and dust removal talisman in his hands and smiled gently. He looked at the young woman and asked, "How may I address you, miss?" That question was a little abrupt. After all, to outsiders, the difference in status and cultivation realm between the two of them was immense. However, there was no hint of blame in the young woman's eyes and she merely smiled. "Who do you think you are?" Right then, Commander Liang strode forward and glared at Su Zimo coldly, berating, "A lowlife like you is not qualified to ask about the name of the young mistress." Lowlife. Su Zimo raised his brow. This was the first time he had heard someone refer to him as a lowlife up till this point of his cultivation. Liang Qiu. The young woman frowned slightly and glanced sideways in displeasure. "I've told you many times that everyone ascended from the lower world. There's no distinction between our statuses. You've only ascended a couple dozen thousand years earlier than him. Why are you mocking him?" "Mistress, you are right." Liang Qiu lowered his head slightly with a terrible expression, but he did not dare to refute. The young woman looked at Su Zimo and smiled apologetically. "My name is Xie Qingying. Liang Qiu is not a bad person by nature. He merely said it in a nasty manner. Please don't take offense." Su Zimo smiled and nodded. Liang Qiu glared at Su Zimo secretly and whispered to the young woman, "Mistress, there's nothing much here. Let's leave." The young woman nodded slightly and turned to leave once more. All right, that's enough. Everyone, head back to look after your own spirit fields. There's nothing much to see here." When Duan Tianliang saw Xie Qingying and Liang Qiu leave, he straightened his back and ordered everyone arrogantly. Many people looked at Su Zimo with pitiable expressions before dispersing. Duan Tianliang walked toward Su Zimo. He was fat and not tall. When he arrived before Su Zimo, he even had to raise his head and look up. Su Zimo's expression was indifferent and his gaze was calm. Duan Tianliang sneered, "Country bumpkin, don't worry. The mistress has orders for you to recuperate first, so I won't make things difficult for you. All right, you'll live there." Duan Tianliang pointed to a straw hut not far away. Su Zimo could not be bothered with that person. Arriving at the pit, he put away the bronze square tripod and turned towards the straw hut. Looking at Su Zimo's back view, Duan Tianliang spat and sneered, "Bloody hell, what's a grade 1 black immortal getting cocky for? You'll be in for it in a few days." The straw hut was simple and crude with a bamboo bed, table and a few bamboo stools. Su Zimo had just escaped from the black hole in the starry skies and spent countless years curled up in the bronze square tripod. To him, this straw hut was a paradise. After Su Zimo entered the hut, he tore apart the dust removal talisman and a mysterious power enveloped him. In the blink of an eye, the mud on his body vanished completely. He took out a new set of green robes from his storage bag and pondered as he wore it. Although he had already ascended to the upper world and arrived on the Dragon Abyss star, he still had many doubts. The greatest doubt was naturally which world this was. Xie Qingying had once said that everyone had ascended from the lower world. Was she referring to everyone in Snow Wind Ridge or the entire Dragon Abyss star? If it was the latter, that would be strange. Were there no native living beings of the upper world on such a massive star? Also, there was the matter of his cultivation. Was he only a grade 1 black immortal after ascending through the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation? In addition, he did not know the purpose of the 2 immortal herbs that he had to plant, the essence-nourishing grass and the rain-frost flower. Right then, footsteps sounded from outside. Su Zimo frowned slightly. Could Duan Tianliang be so anxious to cause trouble for him so soon? "Young man?" Right then, the person had already arrived at the door and knocked gently, calling out. Su Zimo was slightly stunned. "Come in." The person pushed the door open and entered. He had a dark face and an honest expression. It was one of the onlookers who had spoken up for Su Zimo a few times. Su Zimo had some impression of this person. The person was stunned when he saw Su Zimo, who was neatly dressed after removing the mud. "Young man, to think that you're so young and refined, like a scholar," he said with a smile. Thereafter, as though he recalled something, the person asked with widened eyes, "Young man, you're not injured?" "But earlier on. Those were only minor injuries. I'm fine after consuming the elixirs of the mistress." Su Zimo waved the bottle in his hands. Actually, this was merely the powerful regeneration capabilities of the Green Lotus True Body. However, Su Zimo had experienced being hunted by King Yunyu before and knew in his heart that the secret of the Green Lotus True Body must not be exposed after he ascended to the upper world. Otherwise, he would attract endless killing intent. Su Zimo changed the topic and asked with cupped fists, "How may I address you, fellow Taoist? Why are you here?" "Ha!" The person waved it off. "There aren't so many rules in Snow Wind Ridge. You can just call me Old Yen. To put it nicely, I'm an immortal farmer. Actually, I'm just a farmer." "Right, I'm not sure yet. What's the use of the essence-nourishing grass and rain-frost flower that we're going to plant?" Su Zimo followed up with Old Yan's topic. "These two immortal herbs are used to refine an immortal pill called the essence condensation pill." Old Yen said, "If you use normal breathing and expiration techniques to absorb heaven and earth essence chi, your cultivation will be too slow. By consuming this essence condensation pill, you can better condense essence chi and speed up your cultivation." "I see." A look of realization flashed through Su Zimo's eyes. Back when experts of the upper world descended upon Tianhuang mainland and were all killed by Daiyu, she gave him many essence condensation pills. Those essence condensation pills were now in the hands of the martial Tao prime body. At that thought, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. He was prepared to find a time to try and establish a connection with the martial Tao prime body. Old Yen said, "Young man, you've just ascended. There are many things that are very different from the lower worlds in the upper world. Let me tell you beforehand lest you suffer." "Thank you very much." Su Zimo cupped his fists hurriedly in thanks. Right now, he was worried that no one would be able to clear the doubts in his heart. Old Yen said, "Cultivating in the upper world requires heaven and earth essence chi. Different cultivation techniques have different effects. The space of the upper world is extremely stable and the ground is even sturdier. It's definitely impossible to tear through space as casually as in the lower worlds." Su Zimo nodded. When he first ascended, he had already sensed something amiss. Old Yen thought for a moment and continued, "Right, we black immortals can't release blood rebirth in the upper world. You have to be careful. Only the legendary Earth immortal experts can regrow an arm, let alone blood rebirth." At that point, Su Zimo's gaze turned cold when he thought of the dragon phoenix true body that was destroyed by King Yunyu. Chapter 1794, Desolate Stars. Chapter 1794, Desolate Stars. Old Yen, did all the cultivators of Snow Wind Ridge ascend from the lower worlds? Su Zimo asked. Of course. Old Yen said, there aren't many native exalted immortals of the upper world on the entire Dragon Abyss star, let alone Snow Wind Ridge. Almost all of them are in Dragon Abyss City. Right. As though he recalled something, Old Yen said, it doesn't matter what we call each other. However, if you see anyone with a higher cultivation realm than you outside, you'll still have to address them as exalted immortals. Sigh, I've seen it with my own eyes. Someone was killed on the spot just because he called the other party fellow Taoist. At the mention of that, Old Yen shook his head gently and sighed. Pondering for a moment, Su Zimo frowned and asked, why is the Dragon Abyss star filled with only people who ascended? You've just ascended and don't know yet. At the mention of that, a look of melancholy flashed through Old Yan's eyes. The Dragon Abyss Star is the most remote star beneath Green Cloud County, and the heaven and earth essence chi is thin. In the eyes of the native immortals, they don't take us who ascended from the lower world seriously at all. Anyone who passes the one of 9 heavenly tribulation will ascend to these remote stars. I heard that only those who pass the 2 of 9 heavenly tribulation, 3 of 9 heavenly tribulation and 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation are qualified to cultivate elsewhere in Green Cloud County. What's the difference between the heavenly tribulations? Su Zimo asked again. There's a huge difference. Old Yen said, under normal circumstances, once one passes the one of 9 heavenly tribulation and ascends to the upper world, as long as they stay in the upper world for a period of time and adapt to the environment of the upper world, fusing with the surrounding heaven and earth essence chi, their cultivation realm will stabilize and they will become a grade 1 black immortal. Following that, those who pass through the 2 of 9 heavenly tribulation will become grade 2 black immortals once their cultivation realms stabilize. Those who can pass through the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation and ascend to the upper world will become grade 4 black immortals, the same level as the mistress and Commander Liang. When he heard that, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat and he understood. Under normal circumstances, after he passed the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation and ascended to the upper world, he should be a grade 4 black immortal when he interacted with the heaven and earth essence chi in the surroundings. However, his ascension process was forcefully interrupted by King Yunyu. Thereafter, he hid in the bronze square tripod and was devoured by the black hole. However, there was no heaven and earth essence chi, air, spirit chi or anything else in the black hole. Therefore, his cultivation realm was maintained at grade 1 black immortal. Now, he had already ascended to the upper world and descended on the Dragon Abyss Star. According to Old Yen, as long as he stayed on the Dragon Abyss Star for a period of time and interacted with the surrounding heaven and earth essence chi, his cultivation realm would rise rapidly and he would reach grade 4 black immortal. It was also because living beings who had passed the one of 9 heavenly tribulation would ascend to remote stars like the Dragon Abyss Star that Xia Qinying and the others had the preconceived notion that Su Zimo had only passed the one of 9 heavenly tribulation. The upper world is vast and filled with heaven and earth essence chi everywhere. Why is the heaven and earth essence chi on the Dragon Abyss Star so thin? Su Zimo frowned slightly. I don't know about that. Old Yen shook his head. Actually, we're just some of the abandoned people. Those high and mighty exalted immortals don't take us who ascended from the lower world seriously at all and left us here to fend for ourselves. Brother Su, follow me. Suddenly, Old Yen said and led the way out, looking up at the distant firmaments. Su Zimo followed his gaze. Brother Su, can you see that? Old Yen pointed to the end of the firmaments. There's a gigantic shadow over there. I heard that Green Cloud County is there. The heaven and earth essence chi there is 10 times richer than on the Dragon Abyss Star. When Su Zimo left the black hole, he caught sight of the gigantic shadow up close. It covered the skies and was extremely vast and shocking. The wish of every cultivator that ascends to the Dragon Abyss Star is to leave this place and head to the legendary Green Cloud County. Why don't you leave? Su Zimo asked. Old Yen smiled bitterly. There's a distant starry sky between the Dragon Abyss Star and that place. Only legendary heaven immortal experts can cross the starry skies. Su Zimo was shocked. Did he have to cultivate to the heaven immortal realm to leave the Dragon Abyss Star? Old Yen said, of course, I heard that there's a teleportation formation in Dragon Abyss City that can teleport people over as well. However, the conditions for teleportation are way too stringent. Most people on the Dragon Abyss Star won't be able to achieve that even if they exhaust their entire lives. At the mention of that, Old Yan's eyes dimmed. Back in my lower world, I was also the notorious Hell Emperor. Everyone said that I was the reincarnation of Yama. Old Yen smiled bitterly. However, I still ended up in this state after my ascension to the upper world. Su Zimo was silent. As Old Yen had said, none of those who could ascend were nobodies. All of them were paragons and monster incarnates of the lower worlds. However, these people ascended and were abandoned on this remote star. The heaven and earth essence chi was thin and their cultivation speed was slow. Even their wills gradually dimmed and were no longer the same as before. Old Yen, how long has it been since you ascended? Su Zimo asked. Old Yen reminisced for a moment before saying sadly, more than 10,000 years. Even after more than 10,000 years, Old Yen was only at the Grade 1 Black Immortal Realm. The situation on the Dragon Abyss Star was even worse than Su Zimo had imagined. Old Yen said, 100,000 years pass in the blink of an eye. I reckon that I won't have the chance to leave in this lifetime. After ascending to the upper world, Su Zimo could sense that his lifespan had not changed much and was still 100,000 years. Su Zimo said, in that case, there's really nothing good about the upper world. After ascending, your lifespan did not increase. Instead, you were abandoned on this desolate star. It's better to be invincible and carefree in the lower worlds. It's different. When he heard that, Old Yan's eyes lit up with a bright glint. He was invigorated and his earlier depression was swept away. Brother Su, do you know that infants born in the upper world are innately fused with heaven and earth essence chi? They save a lot of effort in cultivating and start from the Grade 1 Black Immortal Realm. The foundation of an infant born in the upper world is much higher than the lower worlds. Their future accomplishments will far surpass mine. Let me tell you, the descendants of those exalted immortals will have to use countless universal treasures to assist, nourish, refine their flesh, tendons and bones. There's even a superior grade spirit gathering technique that can create essence spirits for them. Old Yen smiled. To be honest, my son has just turned 2 months old. I intend to save up more essence condensation pills. Even if there aren't any universal treasures, I'll have to exchange a cultivation technique that can condense essence spirits and lay a good foundation for him. Although I have no hope of leaving Dragon Abyss Star in this lifetime, I hope that he can go out and take a look at Green Cloud County and roam the world. At the mention of that, Old Yen became excited. Su Zimo smiled as well. At that moment, the middle-aged man before him was not the Hell Emperor or Old Yen who dominated the lower world. He was only a father. Chapter 1795, Trouble. Chapter 1795, Trouble. Let's not talk about that anymore. Old Yen snapped out of his stupor and said with a smile, when I have time, I'll bring that son of mine over for you to take a look. He really looks like me, ha. Sure thing. Su Zimo replied with a smile as well. Old Yen said, let's talk about something serious. You've offended that fatty and he'll definitely cause trouble for you in the future. You've got to be careful. However, don't worry. The people of Snow Wind Ridge can't kill one another casually. At most, he'll just look for trouble with you and scold you. Just endure it. There's no need to stoop to his level. Su Zimo smiled without replying. Old Yen took out 2 jade scrolls from his storage bag and placed them on his glabella for a moment before handing them to Su Zimo. These are 2 lesser immortal arts of the upper world, Cloud Rain Technique and Flora Art. Put them away and comprehend them as soon as possible so that you can prepare in advance. Su Zimo received the 2 jade scrolls and scanned them with his spirit consciousness. There were indeed 2 cultivation techniques in the jade scroll. Given Su Zimo's experience, he already had a rough idea of them after a single glance. The cloud rain technique was actually a technique to create clouds and rain to irrigate the spirit field. The flora art was even simpler. It was used to remove the weeds in the spirit field before using the essence of the weeds to nourish the 2 immortal herbs, speeding up their ripening. Although the cloud rain technique and flora art are immortal arts of the upper world, they have many similarities with dermic arts of the lower worlds. Old Yen said, it's not difficult for us to cultivate these 2 immortal arts. Back then, I only cultivated for a year and I managed to cultivate both immortal arts. Su Zimo nodded. The two immortal arts were extremely superficial and he had already comprehended most of them during their short conversation. Actually, there's nothing much about farming 13 mu of spirit fields. Old Yen said, to put it simply, the process of sowing seeds is nothing more than watering, weeding and taking care of them while waiting for them to ripen. How long does it take for two immortal herbs to ripen? Su Zimo asked. Old Yen let out a long breath. 100 years. What? Su Zimo was shocked. The two immortal herbs took 100 years to ripen. In other words, the spirit herbs required to condense elixirs also required 100 years of waiting. In the upper world, the cultivation time required was easily 1,000 years. It was common for some exalted immortals to be in seclusion for tens of thousands of years. Old Yen smiled bitterly. There's nothing we can do about it. The heaven and earth essence chi in the dragon abyss star is thin and the immortal herbs grow at an extremely slow speed. I heard that under the jurisdiction of Green Cloud County, immortal herbs will ripen much faster in places with rich heaven and earth essence chi. Su Zimo was silent. It was no wonder why Old Yen was still at grade 1 black immortal after ascending for 10,000 years. Most of the others were also at grade 1 or 2. The heaven and earth essence chi of the dragon abyss star was rare to begin with. Coupled with the fact that immortal herbs grew slowly and cultivation resources were scarce, there was naturally no way for one's cultivation speed to increase. Old Yen thought for a moment and continued, of course, we have to be careful when the immortal herbs are about to ripen. Don't let any random living beings or bandits steal it away. Random living beings? Su Zimo frowned slightly. Old Yen said, most of the people on the Dragon Abyss Star are humans. Of course, there are also a few other living beings that ascended. However, they are few and insignificant. There's no need to worry. There will be guards patrolling Snow Wind Ridge day and night. If any intruders are discovered, all you have to do is shout. Given the strength of Snow Wind Ridge, we can easily chase away some weak bandits. I've been out for a while. I've got to go back and look after my spirit field. Old Yen pointed to the east. My place isn't far from yours. If you have any doubts, look for me there. All right. Su Zimo nodded. After sending Old Yen off, Su Zimo turned and entered the room. He sat cross-legged on the bamboo bed with many questions in his mind. Pondering for a moment, he took out the bronze square tripod from his storage bag and observed it carefully. Now that he arrived at Snow Wind Ridge of the Dragon Abyss Star, he was settled down temporarily. He could not help but recall his experience in the black hole. The bronze square tripod had already recovered one of its walls after devouring the weapon of an expert. The inner wall of the tripod was etched with the Prajna Nirvana Sutra. On the outer wall, there was a lifelike divine dragon etched on it. It was green all over and coiled with its head raised, bearing its sharp fangs and claws. However, the divine dragon's eyes were closed and it looked less lively. He did not know how he escaped from the black hole. However, before he escaped, he seemed to have heard a loud and clear dragon roar. Could it be related to the divine dragon on the bronze square tripod? Su Zimo murmured softly. After pondering for a long time, he still found nothing. Su Zimo tried to summon the martial Tao prime body in his heart. He could vaguely sense the existence of the martial Tao prime body. However, the latter did not reply. There was a high chance that he was refining the Dragon Phoenix true body and had no time to be distracted. Putting this matter aside for the time being, Su Zimo put away the bronze square tripod and began to cultivate. He had to sense the heaven and earth essence chi in the surroundings as soon as possible and recover his cultivation realm. Once his cultivation realm was restored to that of a grade 4 black immortal, he would at least be able to protect himself in Snow Wind Ridge. Before long, night descended. In the spirit field, the sound of frogs and crickets chirping could be heard from time to time, making the long night seem even quieter. In the morning, Su Zimo let out a long breath and opened his eyes. 2 resplendent divine lights burst forth from his eyes before vanishing rapidly. Level 2 Black Essence Realm. In just a single night, Su Zimo's cultivation had already recovered to a grade 2 black immortal. At this speed, it would not take long for him to recover to a grade 4 black immortal. Taking a deep breath of air, Su Zimo closed his eyes and continued absorbing and refining the surrounding heaven and earth essence chi. Right then, his ears twitched and he heard footsteps. The footsteps were rather heavy and headed straight for his straw hut. It was clearly different from old Yan's footsteps yesterday. Su Zimo frowned. Bang! There was a loud bang. The door was kicked open violently and a round-faced fatty stood at the entrance, almost blocking the entire room. He glanced askance at Su Zimo with an unfriendly expression. It was Duan Tianliang. Just after a single night, Duan Tianliang could not hold it in any longer. Hey, country bumpkin. Duan Tianliang raised his head slightly and hollered, don't pretend to be dead there. Get up and hurry and plant the immortal herbs in the 13 mu of spirit fields. These are seeds of the 2 immortal herbs. Hurry and go. Don't dawdle. As he said that, Duan Tianliang threw a storage bag on the ground. Su Zimo opened his eyes slowly and looked at Duan Tianliang quietly. His eyes were deep and bright, but he did not say anything. For some reason, Duan Tianliang felt chills run down his spine when he was stared at by those eyes. It was as though he was not facing someone who had just ascended, but an extremely terrifying and powerful existence, a terrifying beast that devoured humans. Duan Tianliang closed his eyes and shook his head, as though he wanted to purge the illusion. Actually, this was not Duan Tianliang's imagination. Right now, Su Zimo's essence spirit was not only the green lotus essence spirit, but also the dragon phoenix essence spirit. It was indeed a terrifying taboo living being. Even if it was powerful living beings of other races, they would feel their hearts skip a beat against Su Zimo's gaze, let alone Duan Tianliang. Chapter 1796, 1000-ton ball. Chapter 1796, 1000-ton ball. Suppressing the uneasiness in his heart, Duan Tianliang glared back and grit his teeth. Fuck, what are you looking at? I told you to go farm, didn't you hear me? Su Zimo's expression was calm as he said indifferently, what if I don't want to go? He intended to stay in Snow Wind Ridge for the time being, but he did not intend to farm personally. At the very least, for now, he only wanted to recover his cultivation as soon as possible. You have to go even if you don't want to. Duan Tianliang's expression darkened as he said coldly, I call the shots in Snow Wind Ridge. It's not up to you. Su Zimo did not reply and his spirit consciousness moved. The door creaked and closed slowly. For some reason, Duan Tianliang felt a chill run down his spine. What are you doing? Duan Tianliang hollered. Su Zimo remained silent. The atmosphere in the straw hut turned strange and repressive. Stop trying to play tricks in front of me. Since you refuse to be disciplined, I'll teach you a lesson. Finally, Duan Tianliang could not hold it in any longer. He strode forward and extended his palm, slapping Su Zimo's face. Swoosh! The moment Duan Tianliang moved, he felt his vision blur and a green shadow flashed. Before he could react, he felt his rotund body float into the air. The next moment, he felt an extremely painful suffocation. Unknowingly, Su Zimo had leaped down from the bed and arrived before him in a flash. Grabbing him by the throat, Su Zimo lifted him from the ground. Duan Tianliang's eyes widened and his face flushed red with panic. Against Su Zimo's palm, he could not exert any strength at all. He felt as though his throat was not grabbed by a hand, but a hard and cold iron hoop. As long as the iron hoop tightened slightly, his throat would be snapped. How could this be? Duan Tianliang was flustered. How could this grade 1 black immortal who had just ascended possess such power? No, he was not a grade 1 black immortal. Instinctively, Duan Tianliang scanned Su Zimo with his spirit consciousness. Grade 2 black immortal. This time round, Duan Tianliang was shocked. Due to the thin heaven and earth essence qi and lack of cultivation resources on the Dragon Abyss star, it was extremely difficult to raise a cultivation realm. In Snow Wind Ridge, news of anyone who could break through and advance would spread through the entire place. Su Zimo had just ascended and it had only been a single night. Duan Tianliang had not expected that Su Zimo would advance to the level 2 Black Essence realm. He only realized it when he fell into Su Zimo's hands with his life on the line. He could not help but feel shocked. He no longer had the mood to think about how Su Zimo's cultivation increased by a realm overnight. Right now, the only thing on his mind was how to survive. "What are you trying to do?" Duan Tianliang stomped his feet and said with difficulty. "I want to cultivate in peace for a period of time. Don't disturb me." Su Zimo said indifferently, "As for the spirit field outside, help me farm it." "How about that?" Sure. I'll do it." Duan Tianliang agreed without hesitation. If the person before him were to crush his throat, his body would be completely crippled. Even if his essence spirit escaped, he would not have the chance to reconstruct his body. "All right." Su Zimo released his grip and let Duan Tianliang down. Duan Tianliang staggered a few steps back and leaned against the closed door, clutching his chest and panting heavily. Although he seemed like he was recovering, he was actually glancing at Su Zimo from the corner of his eye. As a steward of Snow Wind Ridge and a Grade 2 Black Immortal, how could he be controlled by others so easily? Furthermore, this was someone who had just ascended. "I was merely careless when I was caught earlier on." To think that this lad would have the strength of a Grade 2 Black Immortal. Duan Tianliang lowered his head slightly with a dark expression as he thought to himself, "If I take out my black grade dermic treasure, I'll definitely be able to suppress that lad. This lad has just ascended and is only using scrap metal from the lower world. There's no way he has a black grade dermic treasure. If I can't suppress that lad today, won't he be riding on my head in the future? Where will I put my face? How am I going to survive in Snow Wind Ridge in the future?" At that thought, Duan Tianliang made up his mind. As Duan Tianliang lowered his head and pondered, Su Zimo said nothing the entire time and merely looked at him with a fake smile. Finally, Duan Tianliang raised his head and shouted with widened eyes, "Lad, I'll let you witness the capabilities of the immortals today." Duan Tianliang slapped his storage bag with his chubby palm and withdrew a black brick the size of a face. He channeled his essence qi and a pattern shone on the black brick. His aura surged and immortal light coiled around him, looking extraordinary. "Go!" Duan Tianliang threw the black brick into the air and pointed it at Su Zimo. The black brick smashed down fiercely on Su Zimo's shoulder. No matter the status of the cultivators of Snow Wind Ridge, they could not kill one another casually. Duan Tianliang did not dare to kill either. Furthermore, he merely wanted to take Su Zimo down a notch. Su Zimo was still motionless as he looked at the descending black brick calmly. "This is the 1,000-ton brick. Your body is strong, but no matter how strong it is, can it match my black grade dermic treasure?" When Duan Tianliang saw that Su Zimo seemed to be scared out of his wits, he could not help but laugh smugly. "Country bumpkin, eat my brick." When he saw the scene immediately after, the smile on his face froze instantly. Suddenly, Su Zimo reached out and removed the aggressive 1,000-ton brick that was shrouded by black light. He held it in his palm and examined it left and right. Duan Tianliang was stunned and his smile vanished. Immediately after, Duan Tianliang was scared out of his wits when he saw another scene. "That's all there is to your immortal methods." Su Zimo held the 1,000-ton brick and weighed it in his hands. Casually, he gripped both sides of the 1,000-ton brick and started rubbing. In the blink of an eye, the square 1,000-ton brick turned into a black iron ball right in front of Duan Tianliang. Duan Tianliang's eyeballs nearly popped out. In the upper world, Black Immortals, Earth Immortals and Heaven Immortals corresponded to 3 different grades of dermic treasures: Black, Earth and Heaven. Each level corresponded to a different quality. Similar to the lower worlds, it was divided into inferior, middle, superior, supreme, perfect and connate grades. Although Duan Tianliang's 1,000-ton brick was only at inferior black grade, it took him 20,000 years of accumulation to exchange for it. Many stewards of Snow Wind Ridge did not even have inferior black grade dermic treasures. Duan Tianliang treated that 1,000-ton brick like a treasure and would not reveal it easily. When he exchanged it for it, many people were envious. But now, the 1,000-ton brick was gone, leaving only a pitch-black 1,000-ton ball. Chapter 1797, Boss Su. Chapter 1797, Boss Su. Even without using any blood chi, Su Zimo's current green lotus true body was much stronger than any inferior black-grade dermic treasure. In his hands, that inferior black-grade dermic treasure was like a soft mud that could be kneaded casually. Su Zimo weighed the black iron ball in his hands and looked at Duan Tianliang playfully with a faint smile on his face. Su Zimo was smiling. However, Duan Tianliang was about to cry. He had not expected that a country bumpkin who had just ascended and knew nothing would be such a ruthless character. If that person wanted to kill him, it would be as simple as killing a chick. Even grade 3 or 4 black immortals might not possess the strength to accomplish what he had just done. Boss Su, I was wrong. With a thud, Duan Tianliang knelt on the ground and kowtowed. No matter which world one was in, the path of cultivation was heaven-defying and filled with danger. The reason why he was able to cultivate to this point and ascend to the upper world was because he was adaptable to the situation. To him, dignity was merely a worldly possession. Survival was the most important thing. In his life, he knelt to countless people and was trampled by countless people. However, in the end, he was the one who laughed till the end and ascended to the upper world. Boss Su, I was blind to not know your methods. Duan Tianliang slapped himself fiercely. I truly don't know my place. To think that I would dare to show off my skills in front of someone like you. You are the resplendent stars in the night sky and the bright full moon. Compared to you, my methods are merely like the light of a firefly. Duan Tianliang blurted out those flattering words without thinking, as though he had said them countless times. Su Zimo was unmoved with an indifferent expression. Anyone who could ascend to the upper world would be a peerless paragon of the lower world even if they had only passed through the one of 9 heavenly tribulation. How could they submit so easily? Su Zimo's gaze was deep as he said coldly, you had better not play any tricks. If I find out, I'll need you like it. He pointed to the black iron ball in his hands. Duan Tianliang shuddered in fear. Initially, he had other thoughts and was prepared to escape from this place first before making further plans. But now, Duan Tianliang was truly afraid when he heard that. Boss Su, you must be joking. How is that possible? Duan Tianliang said hurriedly, from now on, I'll follow your lead. If you want me to head east, I'll definitely not head west. Sure. Su Zimo nodded. Help me farm the 13 mu of spirit fields outside. Duan Tianliang's expression froze. Ever since he broke through to the level 2 Black Essence realm and became a steward, he had never gone to farm personally. Why? You're unwilling? Su Zimo raised his brow. Of course not. Duan Tianliang shuddered and blurted, I'm more than willing. I should be the one to do something like farming. It's a supreme honor to be able to gain your trust, Boss Su. Alright, don't disturb me during this period of time if there's nothing important. Su Zimo said indifferently and threw the black iron ball in his hands to Duan Tianliang. Duan Tianliang received it with a pained expression. A perfectly fine inferior black-grade dermic treasure had now turned into a huge iron egg. You may leave. Su Zimo waved his sleeves gently and returned to the bamboo bed. Duan Tianliang felt as though he was pardoned. As he retreated, he mumbled, my ancestors have blessed me to be able to farm for Boss Su. It's truly a blessing of 3 lifetimes. I have no regrets in life. Before long, Duan Tianliang left Su Zimo's straw hut and closed the door gently. The flattery on his face vanished instantly and his gaze darkened. Duan Tianliang glared at the door with a dark expression. A moment later, Duan Tianliang closed his eyes and took a deep breath before turning to leave. He was still indignant. However, the situation was pressing and he intended to endure it for the time being and look for another opportunity. Duan Tianliang arrived at the destroyed spirit field and grit his teeth. Bending down, he stuck out his butt and started planting. At that moment, it was already noon. Many medicinal farmers of Snow Wind Ridge had already woken up and headed to the spirit fields under their jurisdiction to check. Some of them conjured rain while others removed weeds. Isn't that Fatty Duan? Strange, that spirit field should be planted by the new arrival, Brother Su. Why is Fatty Duan planting it personally? All the medicinal farmers who saw that were amazed. News of this spread one after another. Before long, all the nearby medicinal farmers heard about it and came over to watch the show. Steward Duan, why are you farming personally? This spirit field should belong to Brother Su. Another steward of Snow Wind Ridge could not help but ask. Duan Tianliang looked at Su Zimo's straw hut with resentment. In front of Su Zimo, he was extremely obedient. However, in front of others, he did not want to admit it out of respect. Duan Tianliang coughed gently. This new buddy is severely injured after all and can't move freely. Nobody knows how long it'll take for him to recover. We're all family in Snow Wind Ridge. As a steward of Snow Wind Ridge, it's only right for me to help him plant it in advance. Officially, the earlier we plant the two immortal herbs, the earlier they'll ripen. It's a good thing for Snow Wind Ridge and all of us. Duan Tianliang's words were emotional and righteous. However, those words sounded a little strange coming from him. Did Fatty Duan take the wrong medicine? Did he have a stroke? To think that he would suddenly be so kind. Many medicinal farmers whispered. Something isn't right. Right then, old Yen rushed over. I just returned from Brother Su's place yesterday. His injuries had already healed after he consumed the elixirs of the mistress. Fuck. Duan Tianliang cursed internally and wished that he could stuff the 1,000-ton ball in his storage bag into old Yan's mouth. Brother Su has only recovered from his external injuries. However, his internal injuries will still require some time to recover. Duan Tianliang braced himself and explained. Old Duan. Another steward walked forward and said, let me take a look at that 1,000-ton brick of yours again. I've saved some essence condensation pills this time round and I'm prepared to exchange for an inferior black-grade dermic treasure as well. Get lost. At the mention of that, old Duan's expression darkened as he cursed. The steward was dumbfounded. Duan Tianliang looked at the crowd with a terrible expression and hollered, disperse, disperse. What are you guys looking at? Don't you have to take care of your own spirit fields? Many medicinal farmers shook their heads and dispersed. The steward had a lost expression and did not know why he was snubbed. If it was any other time, Fatty Duan would have proudly taken out that treasure to show off in front of everyone. Su Zimo sat in the straw hut. The Green Lotus True Body's hearing was shocking and he heard everything Duan Tianliang said in the spirit field clearly. However, he did not expose the latter. As long as Duan Tianliang did not play any tricks, Su Zimo did not care at all. Right now, the most important thing for him was to recover his cultivation as soon as possible. Chapter 1798, Immortals. Chapter 1798, Immortals. A large effort was required to plant 2 types of immortal herbs in 13 mu of spirit fields. Duan Tianliang worked for a long time before planting 1,000 immortal herb seeds in the 13 mu of spirit fields. He was already drenched in sweat. Night descended. By now, the other medicinal farmers had already gone back to rest. Duan Tianliang had not consumed so much energy in a long time and his body ached. Coupled with the mental blow he received from Su Zimo, he felt exhausted both physically and mentally. He sat down on the spirit field and looked at the straw hut in the distance with a bitter expression, spitting fiercely. Damn it, one day, I'll trample you beneath my feet. Duan Tianliang cursed softly and laid down without caring about the mud on the ground. Looking at the stars that filled the skies, Duan Tianliang felt a sense of fatigue. His eyelids grew heavy and he fell asleep in the spirit field. Su Zimo cultivated in the straw hut and comprehended the Prajna Nirvana Sutra on the bronze square tripod continuously, absorbing the surrounding heaven and earth essence chi. The Prajna Nirvana Sutra was extremely profound. Even though it was incomplete, Su Zimo could not comprehend it completely given his current attainments in Buddhism. He merely understood that this secret skill was more inclined towards the cultivation of the essence spirit. That was also the reason why the power condensed by the secret skill could neutralize yin and yang and fuse the dragon phoenix and green lotus essence spirits. Strange. Su Zimo lamented internally. The Prajna Nirvana Sutra is clearly a secret classic of the Buddhist monasteries. Why is it etched in this bronze square tripod? Could the owner of this bronze tripod have been an expert of the Buddhist monasteries? What about the divine dragon etched on the outer wall of the bronze square tripod? Those doubts flashed through Su Zimo's mind, but he did not think too much about them. He merely tried his best to absorb heaven and earth essence chi and recover his cultivation. Heaven and earth essence chi was invisible like air. However, if the top experts of the upper world descended above the dragon abyss star, they would definitely be able to sense that the heaven and earth essence chi around the dragon abyss star was gathering towards an inconspicuous straw hut in Snow Wind Ridge. The straw hut was like a gigantic vortex that spun continuously, devouring and absorbing the surrounding heaven and earth essence chi like a whale devouring a cow. At the end of the distant firmaments, the essence chi on the gigantic shadow in the starry skies seemed to be gathering towards the dragon abyss star. Naturally, black immortals could not sense such a change. However, if anyone could enter Su Zimo's room right now, they would definitely be shocked. In the straw hut, Su Zimo's figure had long vanished and in his place was a jade green lotus that swayed gently. The lotus leaves were crystalline like jade. The pink lotus blossomed and immortal dew condensed on the 81 lotus petals. A bedazzling glow spewed out from the lotus platform. During the process, Su Zimo had a mysterious feeling. It was as though he had transformed into a creation green lotus and was absorbing heaven and earth essence chi wildly. At that moment, his spirit consciousness seemed to have transformed into millions of roots that extended in all directions. In fact, he could clearly sense the immortal herb seeds that had just been planted in the surrounding spirit fields. Sensing his spirit consciousness, the immortal herb seeds seemed to have a mind of their own and emitted a sense of joy and submission. It was an extremely mysterious feeling. Su Zimo was immersed in it and unknowingly, the night passed by in the blink of an eye. The skies had just lit up. Duan Tianliang stretched and sat up, looking drowsy. Because he had just woken up, he looked a little lost. After meditating for a while, he gradually returned to his senses. Damn it, I actually slept on the spirit fields. Duan Tianliang cursed and patted his butt, prepared to get up. Suddenly, Duan Tianliang's gaze froze. In his vision, green sprouts grew neatly on the spirit field beneath him. Did I sleep too much? I'm even hallucinating. Duan Tianliang mumbled and shook his head vigorously, rubbing his eyes before opening them. His pupils gradually constricted. He turned around hurriedly and looked around. Without exception, sprouts grew one after another on the spirit fields around him, filled with vitality. This. Duan Tianliang was stunned. He had just planted the immortal herb seeds in the spirit field beneath him. In just a single night, all the seeds had sprouted and broken out of the ground. Duan Tianliang had stayed in Snow Wind Ridge for more than 10,000 years and had started off as a medicinal farmer. He was extremely familiar with the pattern of the immortal herbs ripening. The heaven and earth essence chi on the dragon abyss star was thin. The two immortal herbs grew slowly, and it would take an entire 100 years for them to mature completely. It would take close to a year for the essence-nourishing grass and rain frost flower to sprout and break out of the ground. However, both immortal herbs had sprouted overnight. Bloody hell. If Duan Tianliang had not planted the spirit field personally, he would not have believed that what he saw was real. What's going on? Duan Tianliang frowned in deep thought and thought to himself, could it be that I'm the reincarnation of some exalted immortal and have already begun to gather fortune? A casual act from me managed to create such immortal phenomenons? He was puzzled. A long time later, Duan Tianliang snapped out of his stupor and was pleasantly surprised to discover that his cultivation realm had advanced as well. Although he had yet to advance to the level 3 Black Essence realm, a single night was equivalent to 100 days of cultivation. Duan Tianliang's eyes shone with excitement. At this cultivation speed, I'll be able to break through to the level 3 Black Essence realm before long. Duan Tianliang glared at the straw hut in the distance and grit his teeth. Su Zimo, I'm going to teach you a lesson when the time comes. Boss Su? Bullshit. Before long, the skies lit up. Many medicinal farmers passed by this place and their jaws nearly dropped to the ground when they noticed the scene in the spirit fields. That's not right. Fatty Duan just planted this spirit field yesterday. I saw it with my own eyes. Fatty Duan, what's going on? How did the immortal herbs in your spirit field grow so quickly? Holy fuck. This is an immortal phenomenon. Many medicinal farmers were shocked. Duan Tianliang stood on the spirit field with his head raised and chest puffed, looking into the distance with an unfathomable expression as he said indifferently, it's just some small tricks. There's no need to make a fuss. Steward Duan, what's going on? Another Snow Wind Ridge steward could not help but ask. Fatty Duan, is this some illusion technique? Another person shouted. Duan Tianliang was displeased and flicked his sleeves. These immortal herb seeds were planted by me personally. They naturally contain great opportunities and immense fortune. It's not something that you mere commoners can understand. Everyone was dumbfounded. Sigh. Duan Tianliang sighed deeply. I haven't farmed personally for a long time and my technique is a little rusty. That's why these immortal herbs are growing so slowly. Everyone was stunned by his remark. Everyone felt that Duan Tianliang's words were utterly ridiculous. However, the scene before them was indeed real and could not be faked. Chapter 1799, Subdued. Chapter 1799, Subdued. After a commotion, everyone gradually dispersed. Duan Tianliang was once again in the limelight among the many medicinal farmers and stewards. He could not help but blush and gloat internally. However, he calmed down quickly. That was because he knew that although he was the one who planted the immortal herb seeds, the fact that they grew overnight should have nothing to do with him. It was as though the essence chi gathered in the 13 mu of spirit fields had suddenly turned richer overnight, allowing the two immortal herbs to grow rapidly. Strange. Duan Tianliang rubbed his chin in confusion. There was no way he could link it to Su Zimo. Even Earth immortals and Heaven immortals could not do such a thing, let alone someone who had just ascended from the lower world. Duan Tianliang decided to continue guarding here to check things out. At the same time, Su Zimo sensed what was happening outside and gradually understood. The creation green lotus was an utmost treasure that stole the creation of heaven and earth. His green lotus true body was already at an extremely high level after advancing to grade 9 and it was nothing much for him to absorb heaven and earth essence chi. If Su Zimo wanted to, he could absorb and refine the life force essence of all the immortal herbs within 5 kilometers. The creation green lotus was the supreme of plants. Of course, with that, all the immortal herbs within 5 kilometers would wither. It was daytime and there were many medicinal farmers coming and going. Out of caution, Su Zimo did not cultivate and absorb heaven and earth essence qi. Although heaven and earth essence qi was invisible, once he cultivated, the essence qi in the surrounding 13 mu of spirit fields would increase exponentially. It would be much richer than outside and would be easily sensed by others. This matter concerned the creation green lotus and must not be casually exposed. The fewer people who knew, the better. Of course, Su Zimo was not idle either. Instead, he continued comprehending the contents of the Prajna Nirvana Sutra. There were not many Sanskrit words etched on the walls of the tripod. However, every single word seemed to contain a mysterious truth. Before long, night descended. The surrounding medicinal farmers had already dispersed. Duan Tianliang was the only one lingering around the spirit field. For the entire day, Duan Tianliang had been staring at the spirit field. In the end, he could not gain anything nor did he find anything unusual. He could not help but feel disappointed. However, after thinking about it, he was still indignant and moved a bamboo chair to sit in the spirit field. When Su Zimo sensed this in the straw hut, he pondered for a moment and decided to start cultivating, absorbing heaven and earth essence qi. It was impossible to hide this from everyone. Furthermore, from the looks of it, Duan Tianliang was clearly prepared to guard this spirit field at all times. It was impossible for Su Zimo to not cultivate just because Duan Tianliang was guarding here. He could control a mere Duan Tianliang. Duan Tianliang leaned against the bamboo chair. Initially, he was a little energetic. However, he looked up at the skies and listened to the sounds of frogs and crickets. Gradually, his gaze turned blurry and he fell asleep. Duan Tianliang had been thinking about this matter the entire time. Even if he fell asleep, he would not feel at ease. Suddenly, Duan Tianliang jolted awake. It was already late at night. Duan Tianliang suddenly felt that something was amiss. The heaven and earth essence qi around him turned extremely rich. Duan Tianliang's eyes widened and he was invigorated instantly. He could not believe it and thought that it was his imagination. He even ran far away from the radius of the surrounding 13 mu of spirit fields. The heaven and earth essence qi elsewhere was still extremely thin. The essence qi was only shockingly rich in the area of these 13 mu of spirit fields. Duan Tianliang looked at the two immortal herbs in the spirit fields. In just a few hours, the sprouts of the two immortal herbs seemed to have grown taller. How could this be? Duan Tianliang's eyes flickered with a bewildered expression. After pondering for a moment, he raised his head and looked at the ordinary straw hut in the middle of the spirit fields. Could it be? He thought of a possibility. It was truly a ridiculous assumption. He had lived in Snow Wind Ridge for 10,000 years. Such a strange situation had never happened before. However, it only happened after that person ascended. In other words, there was a high chance that this matter was related to that person. This is a huge matter. Duan Tianliang shifted his gaze and was prepared to report this matter to the territorial lord of Snow Wind Ridge through the night. He had just turned around when he nearly bumped into someone. Duan Tianliang took 2 steps back instinctively and was about to curse. However, when he saw that person, he could not help but be scared out of his wits. He swallowed the curse words that he was about to say. "Bibi Boss Su. Why are you out so late at night without a single peep of sound? You scared me." Duan Tianliang's voice was trembling. "Cultivating here will only benefit you," Su Zimo said slowly. Those were not lies. Cultivating in such an environment with rich essence qi would make every day equivalent to 100 days. However, Su Zimo changed the topic. "There are some things that you should keep to yourself and not tell anyone." Definitely. Duan Tianliang said hurriedly, "Boss Su, don't worry. My lips are the tightest." Actually, Duan Tianliang was already planning to report this matter the moment he left this place alive. Su Zimo did not say much. He looked at Duan Tianliang deeply before turning to walk towards the straw hut. Duan Tianliang sneered and was about to leave. For some unknown reason, his heart skipped a beat and he released his spirit consciousness to circle around Su Zimo. Pust. Duan Tianliang could not help but gasp when he checked. Level 3 Black Essence Realm. At that moment, Duan Tianliang's pupils constricted and his hairs stood on end. A day ago, this person was only a grade 2 Black Immortal. In just a day, that person was already a grade 3 Black Immortal. What sort of cultivation speed was that? Could this person be the reincarnation of an exalted immortal? Duan Tianliang was shocked and fearful. Initially, he truly intended to report this matter. But now, he could not help but shudder when he recalled the deep gaze Su Zimo gave him before leaving. No. Duan Tianliang was secretly alarmed. My every move has long been watched by this person. If I leave now, I'll probably die here. At that thought, Duan Tianliang let out a long breath and returned to the spirit field obediently. No matter what, such a cultivation environment was indeed rare, and this matter was a combination of fortune and misfortune. With that thought, Duan Tianliang started cultivating. In just a single night, his cultivation had advanced significantly. The immortal herbs in the spirit field grew rapidly, and news of this spread quickly among the medicinal farmers of Snow Wind Ridge, causing everyone to click their tongues in wonder. However, it was only 13 mu of spirit fields and did not attract much attention from Snow Wind Ridge. In the blink of an eye, a year passed. Duan Tianliang watched as the immortal herbs in the spirit field grew faster and faster. The immortal herbs that were supposed to ripen in 100 years were about to ripen in a short year. This matter finally attracted the attention of some black immortals in Snow Wind Ridge. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.